As these two guys were casually walking to school, one of them suddenly caught a ball straight to the face. The punk looked at them with nothing but contempt, like they weren't even worth wasting his time on. But instead of the fear he used to feel, all that was left inside the hero was pure rage. In an instant, the memories came flooding back, of how those bastards made his life a living hell. Certain nobody would ever stand up to him, the thug walked right up into his face and started throwing around the same old threats. Too bad this time things weren't going his way. The moment the bully threw his first punch, the hero casually knocked it aside without breaking a sweat. Completely losing it, the jerk charged at him, only to eat a devastating punch right to the face. Then the hero unleashed a brutal barrage of blows, until every bit of that smug confidence was beaten out of him. So how did an ordinary high school kid become this strong? Because just moments earlier, he was humanity's very last hope. He butchered demons one after another, never giving a single enemy any chance to stand in his way. But when he finally faced the last SSS rank monster, he knew there was no winning this fight. So with his final attack, he incinerated both the monster and himself, thinking of the family those demons slaughtered. But instead of the death he was ready for, he was reincarnated. He suddenly opened his eyes, and realized he was back in his own bed. The first shock is simple and impossible. He did not die. As he takes in the room, he struggles to understand where he is. He rushes to the window for answers. Outside, a normal campus hospital and ordinary students greet him instead of a ruined world. Seeing peaceful crowds where there should have been devastation, he realizes reality itself has changed. It takes time for him to accept that what he is seeing is real. He steadies himself and begins checking his surroundings more carefully. The truth hits him at once. He has returned to his university days, 10 years in the past. Before he can fully process it, a system-like signal activates around him. A message confirms that Glutton's power has completed its fusion with him. The date on a nearby device verifies the impossible. May 16, 2157. Sichin confirms that he has truly gone back 10 years. He quickly calculates the opportunity this gives him. 3 years remain before the first demon lord appears. That first demon lord will be Wrath, whose arrival in 2160 begins the disaster. Wrath's emergence will open the way for hellish forces to pour into the human world. Once Wrath appears, the other demon lords will follow one after another. That chain of events is what destroyed the world and took everything from Sichin. Now, back at the beginning with new power in his hands, he understands he has been given a chance to change it. Sichin resolves to kill Wrath before it fully emerges and stop the gates of hell from opening, convinced this is his chance to rewrite everything. A system message confirms that he has completed a fusion with Glutton's power. As he regains awareness, he notices a strange screen floating before him and tries to make sense of it. The display responds to his hand like a tangible interface only he can perceive. He is startled when the screen identifies him and lists game-like attributes. Seeing every stat fixed at 100, Sichin realizes the interface is showing his current condition. Because he never had anything like this in his previous life, he starts comparing it to the old awakening system he once knew. He recalls that awakened people normally belong to rare elemental classes, each tied to a specific combat path. At school, only a tiny fraction of students ever awakened, and the weak were easy prey for stronger classmates. That brutal hierarchy explains why he had ended up hospitalized before. His thoughts are interrupted when another screen suddenly appears in front of him. The new display reveals the class Lightning Assassin, a title he recognizes immediately. He realizes this was the class he possessed in his previous life as well. That coincidence makes him suspect he may have awakened far earlier than he should have this time. Determined to confirm it, he tries to test his current power and even attempts a class change. Before he can continue, someone abruptly opens the door. His roommate Ma Long rushes in, shocked to find him awake. Ma Long grabs him in relief and panic, desperate to know whether he is all right. Sichin reassures him, while quietly confirming that the mysterious interface remains invisible to everyone else. Ma Long is stunned that Sichin's injuries have vanished overnight even though he had been beaten nearly to death the day before. Sichin recognizes Ma Long as the same loyal roommate who had once awakened early and died during the Demon Lord's rampage. Seeing him alive again makes the return to the past feel undeniably real to Sichin. In that moment, he fully accepts that he has truly come back. Ma Long suddenly remembers the school's ranking test the next day and insists they go prepare for it. Even without awakening yet, Ma Long knows the test is crucial for graduation and drags Sichin along. They head out across the campus as evening settles over the school grounds. Around them, awakened students casually use their powers in everyday campus life. The school's atmosphere makes clear that combat ability shapes even ordinary activities here. As they walk, Sichin is struck by how long it has been since he last saw so many living people. Ma Long, unable to follow that remark, tries to steer the conversation back to something normal like walking the track. But Sichin is already thinking about the life he lost once before. He knows that if he does nothing, the same ruined future will happen again. So he decides he needs a plan immediately, and must rank up as fast as possible. From memory, he recalls that the fastest way to rise in this era is to kill monsters near dungeons, where danger and opportunity gather together. The image of a dungeon reminds him how deadly those places are, but also how essential they are for gaining strength. Looking back at his stats, he starts comparing his hidden system values to the public ranking system used for awakened people and monsters. He remembers that most students remain stuck at E rank, while only the exceptional or well-connected ever climb much higher. Even if his display still shows level 1, he suspects his real combat ability should evaluate far above that. With a glance at Ma Long, he dryly concludes that whatever his grade is, it would certainly surpass his roommates. That thought is cut short when a basketball suddenly slams into Ma Long's face. Ma Long crashes to the ground, hurt and humiliated by the cheap shot. A familiar group of upperclassmen calls out to them, making it clear the hit was no accident. Their leader greets them with mocking concern and reminds them how quickly they recovered from yesterday's beating. Ma Long immediately realizes they have run into the same bullies again and panics. Si-chin faces the group in silence, recognizing the threat without flinching. The leader boasts to his friends that he knew Si-chin and Ma Long could survive another round of abuse. He then demands tribute, using his status on the basketball team as an excuse to extort 2 cases of drinks from them. Terrified, Ma Long starts apologizing and offers to go by them immediately. Si-chin stops him, telling Ma Long the guilt belongs to the bullies, not to them. As the gang keeps watching from the steps, the confrontation hangs on the edge of escalation. A familiar bully notes that the 2 boys recovered faster than expected, making it clear he has crossed paths with them before. The bespectacled boy immediately realizes their bad luck has brought them face to face with the same tormentor again. As Si-chin approaches, he finds the group waiting for him openly, with the bullies' allies nearby and no attempt to hide their intent. The ringleader boasts that he was right about the 2 boys being tough enough to survive repeated abuse. Seeing him stirs Si-chen's old anger, and buried memories of past humiliation rise back to the surface. He recalls being violently forced underwater, the memory carrying the panic and helplessness of that assault. The flashback continues with the gang holding him down at a sink while laughing at his struggle. His friend had tried to stop them, but his protest only showed how powerless he was against the group. The bully had treated the torture like a joke, pretending he was helping Si-chin rather than abusing him. He kept pressing Si-chin under the water, arguing that the boy needed to be pushed harder because he still had not awakened any power. The others joined in the cruelty, enjoying the scene as entertainment. When Si-chin finally collapsed, the gang lost interest and walked away, dismissing the whole thing as boring. Back in the present, Si-chen's friend rushes to him in alarm, fearing the encounter has broken him again. Si-chen, still carrying the weight of those memories, bitterly wonders why people like them are never allowed to escape this kind of abuse. He realizes that the same malice he once associated with monsters exists just as strongly in ordinary people. Meanwhile, the bully relishes the chance to keep tormenting him, eager to drag the abuse out further. He starts with petty domination, blaming the boys for not preparing drinks for him even though they had no reason to serve him. The bespectacled boy reflexively apologizes and offers to obey, showing how deeply the intimidation has conditioned him. Si-chin stops him and makes a quiet but decisive stand, insisting they are not the ones who should be apologizing. The bully is caught off guard by the unexpected defiance. Si-chen's friend is stunned, barely able to process that Si-chen is openly pushing back. The ringleader steps forward and reveals himself as Gongqing, a flower warrior, surrounding his arms with green energy as a threat. Si-chen meets that threat with a cold, unwavering stare. It becomes clear that Gongqing's confidence comes less from his own talent than from the protection of his powerful older brother, the student council president. The nearby students immediately assume another public beating is about to happen. As Gongqing closes in, the crowd mocks the pair as the school's most useless students, one weak and the other still supposedly unawakened. Gongqing looms over Si-chen and prepares to strike, expecting no resistance. He demands to know who gave Si-chen the nerve to speak back. Si-chen answers with a direct warning: Gongqing is to leave them alone from now on. Enraged, Gongqing swings to punish him for that challenge. Instead of being hit, Si-chen catches the attack cleanly, stopping the blow outright. The sudden block throws Gongqing off balance and forces him backward in shock. The witnesses can hardly believe that Si-chen just stopped Gongqing's fist. Their disbelief deepens because Si-chen was supposed to be unawakened, yet he is clearly standing on equal footing. Humiliated, Gongqing lashes out verbally and prepares to crush Si-chen with greater force. Si-chen decides this is the right moment to test a new power and activates job switching. The switch completes, and he becomes an electric assassin, lightning gathering around him as his status changes. His friend is left reeling, realizing Si-chen has awakened without anyone noticing. Si-chen calmly studies the electricity in his hand, already in control of his new ability. Gongqing responds by hardening himself in indestructible demon armor, trying to overwhelm Si-chen with brute durability. Convinced his reinforced strike is unbeatable, Gongqing charges in with a finishing blow. Si-chen moves first, slipping inside the attack with speed Gongqing cannot follow. He drives an electrified punch straight into Gongqing's face before the armored attack can land. The impact sends Gongqing flying across the ground, ending the exchange in a single hit. The crowd erupts in disbelief as they realize Si-chen has just blasted Gongqing away with one punch. His friend's fear turns into stunned amazement at the sudden reversal. Even sprawled on the ground, Gongqing cannot accept what happened and accuses Si-chen of winning through a sneak attack. Unable to recover his pride alone, he screams at his companions for standing by instead of helping him. One of them hesitates, shaken by how completely the situation has flipped. Si-chen advances through crackling lightning, no longer the helpless victim they remember but the one now controlling the confrontation. A brutal upperclassman lunges in, determined to kill Si-chen before anyone can stop him. Si-chen meets the attack head-on and catches the incoming blow with crackling electric force. He slips inside the man's offense and drives a charged strike into him, instantly turning the fight around. With cold certainty, Sichin judges his opponent too weak to matter. He follows through with a devastating electric slam that ends the exchange in one burst. The attacker is launched away, completely overwhelmed by Sichin's sudden power. He crashes hard into the arena wall and floor, leaving the nearby students stunned into silence. The defeated bully is left bloodied and barely conscious, no longer a threat. As the crowd recoils, Sichin stands calmly over the aftermath while his friend and the onlookers struggle to process what just happened. His bespectacled friend can hardly believe that the same Sichin has become this strong. Sichin remains composed, already thinking past the victory instead of enjoying it. Reviewing his status, he concludes that his attributes are maxed at 100 and that his awakened identity, as Sichin, is now firmly established. He confirms that he can still enter his electric assassin state whenever he wants, just as before. From the ease of this win, he infers that his current combat grade is above E, though the exact rank is still uncertain. But one inconsistency immediately bothers him. Even after decisively beating his opponent, his system stats have not changed at all. That leads him to suspect the old rule still applies. Progress may require killing rather than merely winning. His friend panics as Sichin advances again, afraid he is about to do something irreversible. Sichin tests the idea by bringing an electrified blade to the fallen man's throat. He realizes the method of gaining experience appears to be exactly the same as in his past life. For a moment, he is fully prepared to finish the man if that is what the system demands. Before he can act, a woman interrupts and reminds him that this is still school. The vice president of Lingyu Academy's student council steps in and declares that the punishment has gone far enough, implying the victim had it coming for choosing the wrong target. She reassures Sichin's companion that the bully will not dare touch them again after this humiliation. Sichin withdraws, leaving the defeated student alive but broken in front of everyone. He notes that the student council moved quickly to shield the loser, though he had no real intention of seriously injuring him further in public. Still, Sichin thinks half measures are dangerous, because enemies who are not truly frightened will keep coming back. The witnesses begin to fear him, questioning how the school's supposed weakest nobody could suddenly become someone terrifying. Once his friend arrives, Sichin simply decides it is time to leave. Watching him go, the vice president repeats the rumor that he is one of the weakest and poorest students, but now with clear skepticism. That night, the story follows them back to the boys' dormitory. Sichin's friend excitedly tries to convince their roommates that Sichin has awakened as a powerful Volt assassin. He recounts how Sichin smashed Gong Qing into the ground and scared the troublemakers into avoiding them. One roommate, Xiangzhua, dismisses the tale and demands to know where this supposedly transformed Sichin even is. He argues that if Sichin were really that strong, he would not still need basic training or run from trouble. Another roommate, Xianyu, backs him up from his computer and treats the whole claim as nonsense. They remind everyone that the four of them share a room because they ranked at the very bottom of the year. Xiangzhua boasts that even among the worst students he is still first in the room, charging up magic to prove he is the only one worth taking seriously. He emphasizes that he is the dorm's only combat class core mage, treating that status as an unchangeable fact. Convinced of his own superiority, he mocks the idea that Sichin could ever awaken and instead brags about his own rising prospects. He points out that the final rank evaluation before graduation is tomorrow, insisting the truth will be settled there. Elsewhere, a blazing portal opens in the Rank E training demon lair as another thread of the story begins. A powerful man emerges from the firelit gate with the bearing of someone used to command. He is revealed as Gong Ting, president of the Academy's student council, accompanied by the vice president. After overseeing the session, Gong Ting ends the day's training while the exhausted participants bow before him. As he turns away, he senses unfinished business waiting for him. Outside, he finds Gong Qing still lingering, injured and nursing his humiliation. Gong Qing demands revenge, insisting he cannot rest after Sichin disgraced him publicly and showed no respect for the Gong family. Gong Ting accepts the complaint without hesitation. With quiet confidence, he promises that he will personally handle Sichin. A tense meal opens with a quiet display of wealth and control before the real subject turns to a recent defeat. Across the table, one side dismisses the loss as simple weakness and presses for how the situation will be handled. The blonde man questions whether the opponent they are discussing is truly as dangerous as claimed. The woman reminds him that he knows the school's power structure well, and that even among the few who reached rank D, he has already gathered them under his influence. She adds that his exclusive access to demon lairs gives him an overwhelming advantage, while ordinary awakened people have no real path to grow stronger. That idea gives way to a different reality, as a lone boy runs through heavy rain, pushing himself in isolation. He trains under extreme conditions, carrying heavy weight over a long distance to force his body to improve. He reflects that physical training raises an awakened person's limits, because class power can only be fully used through a strong enough body. Even so, he knows this effort alone is nowhere near enough for what lies ahead. His thoughts return to the catastrophe of 2160, when the Demon King Wrath opened his lair to the human world and unleashed mass slaughter. In that ruined future, Wrath took the last of his family from him, leaving him with a grief he still cannot escape. He remembers that Wrath's arrival also opened the way for the other Demon Kings, turning one disaster into the fall of humanity. With that history fixed in his mind, he defines his first objective. He decides that everything begins with killing Wrath. Because Wrath will descend in 3 years, he resolves to grow stronger faster than that future enemy can. In the middle of his run, his phone suddenly vibrates. He checks the screen and is startled by the caller. Seeing Xiaoyun contact him at all hits him like a miracle, because in his memory she should already be gone. He answers carefully, overwhelmed before he can even speak normally. On the other end, his brother cheerfully complains about the missed calls and explains he had been away at a competition until his phone finally charged again. His brother excitedly says that if he wins this time, they may finally be able to pay off the rent they owe. The call fulfills the desperate wish he made countless times in the destroyed future, to return to the beginning and start over. When his brother notices the rain and his silence, the boy can barely hold himself together. He hides the truth and answers lightly, even as emotion breaks through. He admits that hearing his brother's voice again after losing him once is almost too much to bear, and silently vows to protect this second chance no matter the cost. His brother brushes off the strange remark, promises they will meet after the competition, and hangs up still full of ordinary hope. Left alone in the rain, the boy steadies himself with renewed purpose. Accepting that time has truly reset, he forces himself back into training and demands even more from his body. His new resolve is no longer abstract power, but protecting everyone and everything he once lost. 8 hours after returning to this point in time, he comes back to the dorm while the rest of the room sleeps, already living differently from before. As he washes up, he notes that this younger body is still weak, though he is gradually adapting to it. Once dressed, he turns from physical recovery to the most urgent strategic problem. He realizes that leveling up requires entering a demon lair, but those places are monopolized by guilds. That monopoly means only the powerful and privileged can advance, so he begins searching for another way to reach demon beasts. His thoughts return to the mysterious gluttony power, and he starts questioning what it really is. In response, a hidden system begins to activate. The gluttony system comes online and drags his consciousness into something beyond ordinary reality. He feels himself falling through a strange crimson void without understanding what has seized him. The plunge ends violently as he is thrown into an unknown realm. He finds himself before a grotesque towering structure rising from a red wasteland, immediately realizing he is somewhere impossible. Still in disbelief, he questions how he could be here when he had only been asleep moments before. Elsewhere in the waking world, someone casually reports that he merely went out running, unaware that something far stranger has happened to him. Inside the vision or realm, the disorienting fall and transition continue to press in on him. He is forced to relive the impact of being cast deeper into this place before he can gather himself. The monstrous tower dominates the landscape again, confirming that this is not a passing hallucination. He regains enough composure to question both the place itself and the fact that sleep somehow brought him here. His attention fixes on the tower, sensing that it is central to whatever this realm and his power truly are. Then movement in the red ground reveals that he is not alone. A pack of ranky direhounds emerges, and the system identifies them as Cloud Warriors, proving this realm contains real monsters. As he faces the beasts, the system begins switching his class, and he realizes this strange inner world may be the true interior of a demon lair. Sichin completes his class switch to Volt Assassin and immediately judges that this new power should be enough to handle the situation. He tests that confidence by rushing the skeletal beasts at blinding speed and tearing into them before they can react. His lightning charge strike cleanly bisects one monster, proving the class change has made him overwhelmingly stronger. As the corpse breaks apart, he begins collecting its fang of doom drops while continuing the assault. Realizing his current strength far exceeds these enemies, he cuts through several at once and gathers more materials mid-battle. He concludes that monsters of this rank are no challenge to him anymore. Even as the fight feels disturbingly real rather than dreamlike, the steady stream of experience confirms that this place can make him stronger. He levels up again and recognizes the real value of the demon lair. It lets him gain EXP in advance. Checking his status, he sees his attributes rise sharply under the Volt Assassin class. That growth makes him bold enough to believe he can now clear a demon lair by himself. A boss appears next, the Doomfang King, a cloud warrior far above the fodder he has been farming. Instead of hesitating, Sichin decides to use the boss as a proper test of his new class. He overwhelms the Doomfang King in a single exchange, carving it apart and earning a massive burst of EXP. The battle ends in outright victory, and the boss leaves behind both fangs and a Doomfang crystal. After the rewards push him to level 3, he notes that boss monsters grant many times the experience of regular enemies. Then a new system prompt appears over the corpse, marking it as devourable. The unfamiliar option catches him completely off guard. Seeing the dead boss labeled for consumption, he starts wondering what devourable actually means. He reaches toward the corpse, suspecting this may be tied to another hidden power. As energy gathers in his hand, he begins to understand that this is the effect of gluttony. The ability activates, and a violent devouring process starts pulling the boss into a vortex of red power. Sichin closes his hand around the energy as the absorption completes. When the devouring finishes, the monster is converted into a card instead of simply disappearing. He realizes the implication at once. By killing monsters and devouring them, he can turn them into classes for himself. That discovery shocks him even more than the battle did. He stares at the power in his hand and begins connecting it to something far more dangerous. A demonic image flashes through his mind as the nature of the ability becomes clearer. The devouring phenomenon matches a power he has heard of before. He recognizes it as the same gluttony ability once associated with the demon king Glutton Hadi. That means the legendary gluttony power of a demon king has somehow become his. The realization leaves him stunned, because he now carries a power that should never have belonged to him. He reflects on the old rule of the world. Everyone is born with one class, and that hierarchy cannot be changed. But with Volt Assassin and the newly acquired Dufang King card, he now possesses two classes at once. His thoughts race further, and he sees the terrifying possibility that devouring more demon beasts could let him keep adding classes. He understands that this power could give him countless classes, breaking the limits everyone else lives under. That possibility quickly turns into unease as he asks why he was the one who received such an ability. He also begins to question the demon tower itself, sensing that this place is tied to the origin of everything happening to him. Before he can think further, a crushing force descends and interrupts him. The pressure is so overwhelming that he can barely process what is happening. From deeper within the lair, a powerful being greets him by name, and reveals it has been waiting for him for a long time. The speaker emerges as a Lord-class demon, a towering figure whose presence alone confirms a threat far beyond anything Sichin expected. The encounter turns violent immediately, and the sheer force of the demon's attack shows this is no ordinary awakened beast. Sichin is blasted away before he can establish any control over the fight. As he struggles to recover, he compares their strength and realizes he is only around rank D despite his recent gains. The enemy in front of him, however, is an S-rank boss, making the difference between them utterly hopeless. He cannot understand how a demon lair like this could contain an S-rank monster at all. What unsettles him even more is that this creature somehow knows his name. He keeps fighting and exchanges blow after blow, but every opening he creates fails to turn the battle in his favor. The Lord knocks him away again with ease, proving Sichin cannot match him head-on. Sichin finally realizes the demon is toying with him, avoiding lethal strikes while effortlessly beating him down. The hooded skeletal ruler presses him again, testing whether he is still refusing to yield. Though battered and sweating, the young man makes clear that surrender will never come easily from him. The demon offers him a bargain instead: remain here forever and become the tower's master, claiming this place as a rare chance others would beg for. He rejects the offer outright, swearing he would never choose to stay in this hell. Before he can act on that defiance, a sudden vertical strike tears into him and leaves him stunned. The blow lands so brutally that he barely has time to register the damage. His enemy reminds him that patience was never mercy. He was kept alive only because he alone could reach this place. As the distance opens between them, the demon begins drawing on the entire battlefield with surging violet power. That power erupts outward, and the demon warns that if the young man refuses the role offered to him, he will simply be destroyed. A massive floating rock forms above the field, making the threat of annihilation immediate and undeniable. Faced with death or submission, the young man steadies himself and reaches a decision. He chooses a third path, not obedience, but killing the one trying to claim him. He launches forward at full speed through the storm of falling debris and hostile energy. His lightning-charged assault crashes into the demon's attack pattern as he forces his way into close range. The demon raises his crescent blade to meet him, but the young man keeps pressing, studying every movement. In the middle of the exchange, he realizes he has already found the weakness he needs. He identifies a brief wind-up before every swing, enough time to read the angle and direction of the strike. Using that tell, he starts slipping past the blade instead of meeting it head-on. He notices a second flaw as well. After each strike, the demon leaves a short recovery gap. He understands that if he attacks during that opening, the demon will be defenseless for an instant. He commits to that plan and drives his electric blade straight for the demon's heart. The hit connects, and he bets everything on the paralysis effect, knowing raw rank alone should not let him kill an opponent this strong. The demon reacts too quickly to be finished, so the young man switches to Flash God, flooding himself with electricity to multiply his speed and create distance. Those few stolen seconds become his chance to break away and attempt an escape. While fleeing, he recalls the fight carefully and realizes the battlefield had only one true light source. He reaches for that light, hoping it is the exit from this place, but the light vanishes the moment he closes in, destroying his escape plan. The demon reveals the truth. The supposed exit was only an afterimage, because this was never a demon lair in the first place. Amused, the demon acknowledges how quickly his opponent uncovered the flaw in his attacks. Then he unveils his true form, Purgatory Rakshasa, and boasts that no one who has seen it has survived. The transformation shocks the young man into sudden recognition. That expression and presence remind him of a far more terrifying being from another life, Demon King Glutton. The resemblance hits him with full force as a dangerous memory resurfaces. He realizes he has seen this exact appearance before, on the body of Demon King Lanhwa. A memory returns of his final battle in his previous life, when a creature with this same look appeared amid overwhelming destruction. He remembers the monstrous form rushing through battle with terrifying ease. In that past war, it overwhelmed multiple top-class fighters as if they were nothing. The memory continues with scenes of devastating clashes that no ordinary enemy could have survived. Among the many forms on that battlefield, one demonic shape stood out in his mind. He remembers that form clearly now, and the connection becomes impossible to ignore. Back in the present, the realization hardens into a grim suspicion. The demon before him now bears the same horned, flame-crowned body as that remembered king. The match is exact enough that coincidence no longer seems possible. He begins to wonder whether this being was consumed by Lanhua's power of gluttony, and because that same power has already fused into his own body, the implication becomes even more disturbing. Looking across the endless crimson expanse and the towering structure, he reaches a new conclusion. This entire place may actually exist inside him. The demon confirms his worth, praising both his strength and his insight, and implies that this realm now belongs to him. The young man is left trying to grasp the scale of that claim, realizing everything here may be tied to him personally. The demon presents a relic called the Key of the Void, identifying it as the only key to the gates of the demonic tower. He explains that Manhwa once devoured countless fierce demons, and sealed their strongest among them inside this very tower. A demonic voice urges Sichin to devour everything in his path and use it as fuel, while he receives the Key of the Void. Staring at the key, Sichin demands to know why this unseen being is helping him at all. The demon reveals that even demons recognize evil, and that the demon kings massacred his entire clan out of greed. Having waited endlessly for revenge, the demon decides Sichin is his final chance and places his hopes on him. Sichin presses for the identity of the person the demon believes in so strongly. The demon tells him the answers lie within the tower and orders him to seek them out himself. As his body begins to break apart, the demon offers Sichin his power and begs him to make the demon kings pay. Sichin is stunned by the idea of inheriting a demon's power. The demon insists that from this moment on, Sichin must become unstoppable by opening the tower's demonic gates and consuming everything inside. He warns that the demons within will be unimaginably savage and vicious, far beyond anything Sichin has faced. To survive, Sichin must endure them, conquer them all, and climb to the very summit of that world. Only then, the demon declares, will Sichin be able to devour every last demon king. Judging Sichin's resolve sufficient, the demon deems a mere human worthy of inheriting his power. That power flows into Sichin as the transfer begins. The system confirms the devouring, raises Sichin to level 10, and rewards him with victory loot. Accepting the burden, Sichin vows to carry the demon's will forward. The process completes, granting him the demon purgatory Rakshasa, and Sichin silently swears to repay the demon kings in blood. The scene abruptly shifts to morning light in a dorm room, suggesting he has returned to reality. A roommate's shout drags Sichin awake before he can settle whether the night was real. He sits up in bed, disoriented but quickly regaining himself. Hearing classmates rush off for the school's rank test, Sichin realizes he is back in the dorm. When he checks his body and finds all his wounds gone, he wonders if everything was only a dream. His system and recovered loot prove otherwise, confirming that the dream was real and its rewards came back with him. Seeing that he jumped to level 10 overnight, Sichin begins to wonder what rank that now places him in. A dorm mate approaches him, eager to talk about the rumors spreading around Sichin. The boy teases that someone was boasting all night that Sichin has become a powerhouse. That rumor has clearly rattled another student, who fears Sichin may be coming for his status as the dorm's top fighter. The self-proclaimed dorm king takes the rumor personally and assumes Sichin wants to overthrow him. Unmoved, Sichin decides the upcoming rank test will reveal the truth of his strength. Meanwhile, the boastful upperclassman keeps swaggering, still convinced of his own superiority. He explains that even within the same letter rank there are tiers, and claims he stands at mid-E rank while the others are only low-E rank. He emphasizes how huge the gap is between tiers and brags that once someone reaches his level, weaker students are no threat at all. As they head toward the testing grounds, he keeps talking himself up and imagines he may have risen even higher since the last exam. A friend quietly advises Sichin to aim for D rank and use the test to frighten the loudmouth into silence. Sichin repeats the target to himself, already measuring what D rank would mean. At the grounds, movement near the entrance draws everyone's attention. The braggart turns to see who has arrived. They find the campus already packed for the National Awakening University official rank test ceremony. Nearby, a feared student named Gong Ching is bullying others, making it clear trouble is close at hand. Recognizing him, the group immediately decides it would be safer not to get involved. Their plan collapses when Gong Cheng's group suddenly notices them. Sichin remains calm, showing no sign of fear even as danger turns toward him. The others panic, realizing too late that they have caught the attention of someone they cannot afford to offend. Instead of attacking, Gong Cheng's lackeys rush over and respectfully greet Sichin as an honored elder brother. The stunned onlookers begin to suspect that the rumors about Sichin's hidden status may actually be true. Sichin walks past without acknowledging the display, leaving everyone else even more unsettled. His sharpened gaze shows he is already assessing the next threat. That threat appears in the form of Jiang Jian from the student council, who approaches Sichin over yesterday's conflict with Gong Ching. Jiang Jian makes the stakes clear by revealing that Gong Ching is the younger brother of the student council president, Lord Gong Ting. Watching from a distance, the others recognize Jiang Jian and realize Sichin is now entangled with the student council itself. As Sichin is suddenly singled out, the nearby students recognize that a major figure is targeting him and feel the tension in the air turn heavy. Chan Di begins humiliating Sichin by boasting that he can instantly sense real powerhouses. Leaning in close, he declares that Sichin gives off nothing but the smell of a permanent bottom feeder. He repeats the insult with smug certainty, framing his judgment as something obvious to anyone with true instinct. He pushes the provocation further, insisting Sichin is destined to stay at the bottom forever. Sichin finally answers with dry contempt, reducing the whole performance to an animal trick. The mockery lands hard enough that Chang Di snaps in outrage. Before the confrontation can escalate, Gong Ting steps in and orders Chang Di to stop. Gong Ting makes clear that he has already investigated the matter, and concluded Gong Qing was the one at fault first. Acting with presidential authority, he rules that wrongdoing deserves punishment, and Chan Di is forced to accept it. Gong Ting falls silent, studying the situation with a controlled, unreadable expression. Si Chen meets that gaze without backing down, turning the moment into a quiet test of wills. The focus then shifts to the school's rank evaluation, as officials announce the start of the testing ceremony and call students up one by one. Gong Ting heads off to prepare for his own evaluation, while Chan Di dismisses Si Chen as no real threat. From above, the massive ceremony begins before a large crowd gathered around the testing stage. Elsewhere, someone with access to a private vantage point takes interest in watching the evaluation unfold. A poised observer hints that a student worth noticing may appear today, making the event potentially far more interesting than usual. The first called student, Xiangzue, steps forward as the crowd encourages him. Eager to prove himself, Xiangzue throws all his strength into the test. He enters the specialized demon lair where the evaluation is conducted in isolation. Inside, he approaches the mechanism that will measure his awakened power. The exam's method is revealed. A demon core absorbs the student's released energy and transmits the reading through connected cables. Xiangzue unleashes his energy directly at the core with everything he has. The blast strikes the core and drives the measurement process into motion. The demon core converts his power into a signal for the external equipment to analyze. Outside, the machinery receives the transmission and begins processing the result. The screen records Xiangzue's current rank as E, mid-tier. Officials confirm the rank, then pause when the second part of the result has not yet appeared. The crowd realizes the more important reveal is still coming, and anticipation spikes. They explain that the test also measures potential, the highest rank a student may be able to reach in the future. When Xiangzue's potential appears as C, it marks him as someone with a real chance of drawing national attention. His final result is confirmed as current rank E, mid-tier, with maximum potential C, leaving him pleased that he has improved since 2 years ago. As the next student is called, some of the weaker students try to comfort each other about their own disappointing prospects. Their results show how low the school's usual standard is, making Xiangzue's C potential stand out even more. Then a new result shocks the crowd when a student reaches current rank D, lower tier, with potential B. The audience erupts because the first rank D of the year has finally appeared. Chan Di emerges from the test basking in the attention, proud of posting rank D with potential A. His result makes him the 8th student this year to reach rank D, leaving others stunned or discouraged. Even the examiners are impressed, noting that so many rank D students in 1 year is unusual and will make the graduation exam far more competitive. The ceremony moves on to the next major name. Gong Ting is called, and he steps forward with the calm confidence expected of the school's most celebrated student. The crowd immediately treats his turn as the true main event, piling on his titles and reputation. Si Chen watches in silence while everyone else is swept up in Gong Ting's prestige. Students recall that Gong Ting had already reached rank D 2 years earlier, far beyond the school's historical norm, and wonder how high he will go now. Inside the lair, the demon core activates as Gong Ting begins his test. The core itself seems to react with unusual awareness as it receives his power. Gong Ting places a hand near it and carefully controls what he releases. Inwardly, he decides not to reveal everything yet, saving his full strength for the graduation combat exam where it will create the greatest impact. Even while holding back, he is certain the result will still place him first in school history. The display starts forming a high rank and an even more exceptional potential, signaling that Gong Ting's result will surpass everyone before him. An examiner notices an abnormal color in the test result and immediately senses something unprecedented. The machine identifies the student as rank D upper tier with S rank potential, an extraordinary mismatch that shocks everyone present. As the result is read aloud, the crowd realizes a student has reached D upper tier while also showing top-class future potential, and the arena erupts. Students celebrate Gong Ting as the first person in school history to achieve such a result, and treat it as a triumph for their student president. The news spreads through the crowd that their school has produced someone with S-rank potential, turning the evaluation into a historic moment. The examiners quickly confirm the reading and decide the matter must be reported to higher authorities at once. Teachers and students alike conclude that an awakened with S-rank potential is a national asset who will receive special protection and attention, especially because Gong Ting is tied to the Imperial Guild. Gong Ting's result is formally displayed, cementing his status as the day's sensation. Elsewhere, senior observers remark that this year's evaluation has produced remarkable talent. The university president points out that his guests must have already known Gong Ting was exceptional, or she would not have come personally. The woman corrects him and reveals Gong Ting is not the person she came to see. She makes it clear that someone interests her even more than Gong Ting. Her attention is fixed on Si Chen, whose upcoming test she is eager to witness. When Si Chen is called forward for rank evaluation, the focus of the story quietly shifts to him. A hostile classmate mocks Si Chen and demands that he at least bring some honor to their dorm. The taunting escalates as the bully predicts Si Chen will score even lower than rank E and make their entire dorm a laughingstock. Other weak-ranked students are lumped together with Si Chen and dismissed as dead weight who will only embarrass themselves later. Si Chen's bespectacled friend pushes back, insisting the mockers are underestimating him. Si Chen enters the testing chamber while the display waits to determine his rank and potential. Even the onlookers begin wondering whether Si Chen can produce anything meaningful. Inside the chamber, the test links him to a strange core-like organism, suggesting the process is probing something deeper than ordinary strength. That hidden entity reacts as if awakened by his presence, hinting that Si Chen carries a dangerous anomaly. Si Chen reaches toward the system with calm control, showing none of the fear expected from someone in his position. The narration explains that for awakened students, this evaluation is not just a ranking but the gateway to joining stronger guilds and securing their future. It further establishes that the graduation combat exam allows teams to form freely, making rank a decisive factor in who gets chosen and who gets abandoned. The stakes rise again with the revelation that the winning team will be recruited directly by the nation's top-tier Imperial Guild. Because of that, the current evaluation is really the first battle in deciding who will control the strongest team. One ambitious student, Yen Lin, is already being courted to lead a complete 10-person squad built entirely from this year's rank E students, with plans to add Gongqing later. His supporters flatter him as the likely final MVP, convinced that the strongest naturally gather around the strongest leader. By contrast, weaker students like Si Chen's group are treated as disposable, reinforcing the brutal rule that the weak are excluded. As time passes with no visible result, Si Chen's friend grows anxious that he has been inside too long. The empty display only deepens the unease, because the machine still shows no movement at all. Many students decide the test is effectively over and start mocking Si Chen as too weak to even register a rank. Confident that no one else matters, Yen Lin's side urges him to stop waiting and move on, certain the remaining candidates are worthless. Yen Lin accepts that assumption and prepares to gather his team, believing the selection phase is already his to control. At that moment, the dormant display suddenly begins to react. The board reveals Si Chen's first result as rank D upper tier, instantly overturning the crowd's contempt. His neglected friends are left stunned as the impossible result sinks in. The friend who defended him explodes with vindication, thrilled that Si Chen has proven everyone wrong. Yen Lin and his followers are caught off guard, their confidence shaken by a result they never considered possible. Inside the system, however, a warning appears. The test has detected an unstable demon core, meaning the rank D result may be inaccurate and requires retesting. Si Chen realizes the machine is only measuring his ordinary body without accounting for his class switching ability, which explains the limited result. He deliberately activates a class switch in the middle of the test to force the system to reassess him. After changing into a weaker class form, he prepares to test again from a different baseline. Outside, the display glitches and begins recalculating his rank in real time. The recalculation upgrades Si Chen from D upper tier to C mid tier, proving his true evaluation is still climbing. The spectators panic as they realize Si Chen's rank has risen again instead of settling. Yen Lin can only call the result absurd, but his disbelief now sounds more like fear that his position is being threatened. Even the examiners are rattled, admitting they have never seen a rank change like this and suspect a system malfunction. The system repeats its warning that Si Chen's demon core remains unstable and that the test results may still be unreliable, leaving the full truth unresolved. Si Chen forces a class change, convinced his other two classes should rank even higher than Si. The switch finishes and he unveils a new level 10 class, Purgatory Rakshasa, eager to test its power. Its status reveals a Star Warrior class built around reclaiming bones, stealing strength from nearby corpses, and manipulating gravity in multiple modes. The testing staff can barely process what they are seeing as the result shocks them speechless. Before anyone can recover, the testing system begins reacting violently to his power. A massive vortex opens overhead, turning the evaluation into a dangerous spectacle. Students stare upward in confusion as the phenomenon spirals out of control. The crowd quickly realizes this is no ordinary test and starts treating the moment as historic. The measuring display struggles to render the result at all. It first identifies his potential at the S level. That alone horrifies the examiners, who realize another S-rank talent may have appeared. Even Gong Ting is caught off guard by the implication. But the reading does not stabilize, and the machine issues a warning instead. The warning escalates into a full system error as the value keeps climbing. The device finally admits Si Chen's potential exceeds its maximum detectable limit. The staff panic as the impossible result breaks their composure. The overloaded apparatus detonates, tearing apart the testing room. Realizing the demon core has overloaded, the examiners rush to check whether Si Chen survived. Inside the ruined chamber, they call out to him, while the damaged machinery still crackles around him. When they find him standing unharmed, their alarm turns into stunned disbelief. They discover the real casualty is the demon core itself, which has been drained to death. Unable to understand it, they wonder if repeated use wore the core out, while Si Chen keeps quiet. He privately realizes he simply overwhelmed the core with too much force, though the accident brought him an unexpected gain. His gluttony power finishes devouring the demon core and grants him an A-rank exquisite demon core ability that can assess nearby power ranks and warn of threats. As the wrecked room settles, Si Chen stands alone at the center of the damage with his new power in hand. He activates the exquisite demon core and immediately feels its effect through his eyes. Now able to read ranks around him, he casually notes the levels of the surrounding students. He tests the new vision further, calmly scanning the crowd. Through it, he confirms Gong Ting is only rank C mid-tier and had been concealing his true strength. Outside, the staff announce that the demon core has suddenly failed and the day's evaluation must be suspended. They add that Si Chen's test result may have been a machine error, promise a report to higher authorities, and postpone the remaining exams until tomorrow. Si-chen's friends reject the official excuse, celebrate him as a genius, and try to drag him back to the dorm to celebrate. A jealous student refuses to believe Si-chen could have reached rank C, let alone shown S-rank potential, and blames faulty equipment. He confronts Si-chen for breaking the demon core and accuses him of wasting everyone's time. Si-chen's patience runs out as he considers silencing the pest by force. For a moment, he seriously weighs crippling the man just to end the harassment. Before he acts, Gongting steps in, orders the troublemaker to back down, and treats Si-chen as a teammate rather than a nuisance. That sudden show of respect leaves everyone confused. Gongting personally invites Si-chen to join his team so they can dominate the graduation combat exam together. He extends the offer directly, making clear he wants Si-chen by name. The onlookers are stunned that Gongting would personally recruit him. Even Gongting's own side resents it, knowing Si-chen's acceptance would force someone else out despite nearly guaranteeing first place. Si-chen, however, cannot see why Gongting values him so highly when others with gifts have failed to earn such attention. The hostile teammate suppresses his anger only because Gongting himself made the request. Swallowing his pride, he forces out a reluctant welcome while barely hiding his irritation. Si-chen dismisses the entire offer at once and says he is not interested. The rejection leaves the hostile teammate reeling in disbelief. Gongting's expression hardens as he realizes Si-chen is serious. When they protest that their team is the strongest in the school, Si-chen makes it clear that means nothing to him. He ends the exchange coldly, calling them noisy and warning them never to bother him again. Si-chen's refusal shocks a blue-haired student, who realizes he has openly defied someone powerful. Around them, the crowd quickly understands that the person he rejected was Gongting, the student council president, making the insult far more serious. Others conclude that Si-chen must be aiming for first place himself, since his test result had already reached the level of a top-ranked combat student. As gossip spreads, students mock Gongting's side for losing face and praise Si-chen for daring to challenge them in public. Gongting remains outwardly calm and decides Si-chen's move must be part of some plan rather than a reckless impulse. The confrontation breaks apart, leaving the school grounds tense as everyone watches to see what follows. Even the faculty regret that the strongest contenders will not cooperate, since they had hoped this year might produce a record-setting team. Still, one teacher admits the conflict may be more interesting than a straightforward success story. She points out that Gongting was raised in privilege, so Si-chen's rejection will feel to him like a direct declaration of war. Another observer warns that their president is not someone who will take such humiliation lightly. Among Gongting's followers, one man tries to dismiss Si-chen's result as a testing mistake and insists he is not truly that strong. Gongting refuses to rely on that hope, deciding that even a tiny chance of Si-chen being genuine is enough to treat him as a threat. His subordinate, emboldened by that hostility, offers to punish Si-chen himself, arguing that a student without real combat experience should be easy prey. Gongting coldly rejects any appearance of personal pettiness, forcing the man to back down and retract the suggestion. He makes his position clear by withdrawing from the day's activities and telling his team to handle their own affairs. At the same time, he pointedly distances himself from whatever they choose to do next. The subordinate catches the implication immediately and realizes he has been given unofficial permission. Grinning, he accepts the cover Gongting has provided and prepares to act while preserving his leader's deniability. 10 minutes later, word reaches another group that Si-chen has already left school grounds. A white-haired student confirms that Si-chen went home without even staying for dinner, making him an easy target away from campus protection. That news feels like perfect luck to the blue-haired thug, who sees a chance to move against Si-chen off campus. He becomes openly excited, convinced that outside school rules he can finally go after him. Meanwhile, Si-chen walks alone, thinking that if his enemy really intends revenge, this is the best opportunity they could ask for. He leaves the campus area and heads into the city, seemingly unbothered by the danger trailing behind him. As he walks, he reflects on his previous life, when an elite guild team entered a demon lair near the sacred He Kingdom's border and met an unprecedented demon. That monster was Wrath, a catastrophic existence powerful enough to define the disaster that followed. The entire guild team was wiped out, and from that moment the demon war escalated until the human world was dragged into ruin. In this life, Si-chen has already formed a plan to locate Wrath's lair early and set his larger strategy in motion. To begin, he needs a large amount of money, so he heads to the Mithril Monster Exchange. He knows this exchange is still modest now, though it will later grow into the country's largest resource market. Since awakened fighters depend on weapons and equipment, he sees the exchange as the fastest place to turn monster materials into cash. He produces several sharp monster fangs as his first goods to sell. The clerk is surprised that a student has brought in such a material at all and questions where he got it. Si-chen simply identifies it as a monster drop, offering no further explanation. A pink-haired employee recognizes the item as a Fang of Doom from a ranky cloud-type demon beast called Direhound. The staff explain that such fangs can be crafted into ranky weapons or ground into powder, but the senior clerk cuts the lesson short and dismisses the item as low value. He complains that the exchange usually serves prestigious awakened customers and that he deals in much higher-grade goods than this. Privately, he resents his stagnant career and the lack of wealthy high-level clients who could help him advance. Seeing no profit in Si-chen, he decides to push the tedious work onto the new employee instead. He hands the transaction over to Lily with fake encouragement, leaving her to process the sale. She politely completes the paperwork and gives Sichin his payment while asking whether he has anything else to sell. The listed price is 18,000, and Sichin notes that the amount is enough to cover his rent for the time being. Rather than leave, he immediately brings out another item. This time he reveals a massive purple greatsword with an ominous aura, making it clear he has come with something far more valuable. Little Lee is stunned by the weapon's appearance, and can tell at once that it is no ordinary piece. The more she studies it, the more convinced she becomes that it is at least rank B and possibly even rank A. The senior clerk angrily rejects that estimate, insisting rank A weapons are worth nearly $1 million and far beyond anything a purse student should possess. Before he can dismiss it, a newly arrived superior calmly states that the sword is certainly neither rank B nor rank A, stopping everyone in place. The clerk instantly flatters his boss and starts to repeat his prejudice that a student could not possibly own anything truly exceptional. But the superior overturns that assumption by identifying the blade as equipment from the land of purgatory, specifically a rank S weapon. The mention of an S-rank item shocks everyone present and instantly changes the stakes. The guild representative hurriedly seizes the opportunity to secure the customer before anyone else can. Qingji personally welcomes the young man with sudden deference, recognizing him as someone worth courting. He escorts him to a private room and promises full accommodation, making clear the guild wants this deal badly. The young man quietly confirms he has finally found Qingji. The guild boss is identified as Qingji of the Mithril Guild, the exact person the visitor came to meet. Once they settle in, the negotiation begins in a far more controlled setting. Qingji asks how much the young man wants for the weapon he brought in. Instead of naming its true value, the young man asks for only 1 million. Qingji is caught off guard because the price is absurdly low for an S-rank weapon. He explains that even far weaker gear sells for millions, and this weapon could command tens of millions or more. The young man reveals he is not selling it outright but using it as collateral for a 1 million loan he intends to repay in a month. Qingji immediately realizes this is far too calculated a move for an ordinary student. As he studies the young man, he starts questioning who this seemingly ordinary university student really is. The borrower sweetens the offer by promising full repayment in 1 month plus 10% interest the month after. Qingji clears the room, deciding this conversation deserves privacy. Left alone with him, Qingji pauses and begins testing the logic behind the request. He identifies the young man as a student at National Awakener University and notes that graduation is near. Qingji connects the timing to the upcoming graduation exam, whose first place prize is exactly 1 million. He presses further, confident he has understood the young man's plan. Qingji concludes that the borrower expects to win first place and use the prize money to clear the debt. He also infers the need is urgent enough that the young man is risking a rare S-rank weapon because he has no better option. Having confirmed both the desperation and the confidence behind the request, Qingji changes his approach. Rather than exploit the situation, he offers 1.5 million immediately with no interest for a month. He frames the improved terms as the beginning of a long-term relationship rather than a one-time transaction. The young man is briefly surprised by how favorable the offer becomes. Qingji adds strict confidentiality and promises future priority treatment and discounts if the young man ever needs training resources. The borrower recognizes that Qingji has already judged his potential and is investing in him early. He decides that defeating Wrath will require more than personal strength and that he needs capable allies. With that in mind, he accepts Qingji's hand and the two form an alliance. They seal the agreement through a magic contract that formalizes the loan. The funds are transferred at once, and the young man confirms receipt of 1.5 million. Qingji then asks what he plans to use in the graduation exam now that his great weapon is tied up as collateral, even offering replacement gear. The guild can only provide lower-ranked equipment, which would not truly solve the problem. The young man declines the offer without hesitation. He reveals he still possesses another weapon on the same level as the one he handed over. That revelation leaves the guild staff completely stunned by the scale of his resources. He departs while Qingji and his assistant see him off with even greater respect. Afterward, Qingji rewards his assistant Shaoli with an immediate promotion for helping retain such a valuable client. As he leaves, the young man remembers the real reason he needed the money so urgently. He decides he still has something important to buy. He takes a taxi and heads out at once. His destination is the Xinjiang County long-distance bus terminal. On the way, he reflects on his previous life, when his family remained trapped in poverty because he had not yet awakened. Back then he survived by taking exhausting delivery work and other odd jobs just to keep them afloat. Even with constant effort, he and Yunny could barely pay rent and had to live frugally to survive. He remembers that Yunny was accepted into the International Central Art Institute. Although she got into her dream school, she treated the news with resignation instead of joy. She gave it up because the school was too far away and she wanted to stay near her brother rather than burden the family. Now, waiting at the terminal, he worries that Yunny's bus should have arrived already and fears he may be too late. A familiar voice calls out to him, jolting him from his thoughts. His sister immediately scolds him for waiting in the wrong place to pick her up. Siyun arrives dragging her luggage and reminds him how badly they need money after paying rent. Seeing her again after 7 years leaves him stunned. She asks her big brother to stop spacing out and help with her suitcase. When he still doesn't respond, she presses him, confused by how strangely he is acting. Unable to hold back any longer, he pulls her into a tight embrace. The sudden hug catches Siyun completely off guard. He quietly takes in the fact that after 7 years, he can finally see Yunny again. Siyun starts to realize this reunion means far more to him than she expected. Her tenderness quickly turns to protest when his grip becomes painfully intense. As she pries herself free, she jokes that he has been acting bizarre lately and urges him to take her home. They head off together while she chatters non-stop, filling the silence between them. Watching her smile, he makes a private vow that this time he will protect her from suffering. Her carefree happiness only strengthens his resolve. Elsewhere, a group of thugs waits in the alley Siyun usually takes home. Their leader orders everyone to hide and ambush the target the moment he appears. He intends to make an example of the boy who crossed him. One of the men warns that student council members are nearby and things could get messy. The leader dismisses the concern, saying he only plans to teach a lesson, though his anger clearly runs deeper. Before the gang can act, the young man appears behind them and coldly warns them to stop bothering him. The thugs keep talking about crippling him before graduation, unaware he is already within earshot. Their boss, Chan D of Cloud Assassin, boasts about his status and promises to crush a mere D-rank nobody. Meanwhile, the siblings continue down the alley toward the trap. Siyun studies him and points out that he has seemed unusually off for days, wondering if graduation stress is getting to him. She teases that someone as simple-minded as him normally doesn't get emotional. Then she repeats his own old advice back at him, trying to push him to pull himself together. To lighten the mood, she breaks into a silly motivational song as they walk. He realizes she already sensed something was different about him, even if she has no idea he has awakened and changed. He reassures her that he is fine, but she immediately sees through the act. Deciding his denial is just male pride, she mocks him for getting old. From the shadows, the waiting gang spots the siblings entering the alley. One thug alerts the boss that the target has a girl with him. Instead of hesitating, the gang takes it as perfect luck because the alley has no cameras. He senses danger at once, and his expression hardens. Recognizing the scent of student council enforcers nearby, he understands exactly who is lying in wait. The ambushers bristle at the thought that their enemies dared come onto their turf. Without warning, he opens an earbud case. He gently places an earbud in Siyun's ear while she is still sipping her drink. He tells her he has been obsessed with one song lately and wants her to listen to it. Siyun relaxes into the music and starts reading his mood through the song instead of his words. As she listens, he quietly steps away, leaving her just outside the coming violence. His aura sharpens and his awakened power begins to surface as he turns to face the threat. The gang advances in force, with Chan Di flaunting his superiority over the low-ranked target. Siyun remains absorbed in the song, unaware that the lyrics are carrying her through the moment he is about to stain with blood. The thugs charge down the alley toward him with weapons raised. As they rush him, he remembers that in his previous life he lost his last family in the year 2160, and only after being reborn could he return to his sister. That memory ignites his fury, because this reunion is the first time he has ever gotten his family back. Enraged that anyone would dare ruin this moment, he launches himself at the attackers in a burst of lightning-fast force. He opens the fight by smashing straight through the first thug with overwhelming speed and power. A young man with crackling power tears through a street fight so fast that one attacker is already sent flying before anyone can react. As a mournful song plays, the focus shifts to a black-haired girl whose loneliness seems tied to him. The fighter locks onto the threat ahead and surges forward, his body charged with violent energy. One of the masked thugs realizes too late that he is facing something far beyond an ordinary opponent. The young man crashes into the group and drops multiple enemies in a single rush, overwhelming them with brutal speed. He keeps cutting through the alley, smashing another man aside and scattering the rest. Even a larger attacker trying to crush him from above cannot stop his advance. Instead, he catches the incoming arm and turns the attack into an opening. With a savage twist, he breaks the man's arm and leaves him screaming. The victim barely manages to register what happened before the pain overtakes him. The fighter follows through without hesitation, driving his glowing arms straight through the man. The impact erupts outward and sends bodies flying, making it clear he is fighting to annihilate, not just subdue. The surviving thug is horrified by how absurdly strong this supposed low-rank opponent really is. Wrapped in golden lightning, the young man charges again with even greater force. He barrels into another cluster of enemies and batters one down before the others can organize. A second thug is smashed aside just as another armed man realizes he is next. The last visible knife wielder braces himself, trying to stand his ground against the oncoming assault. He tries to bolster himself by insisting he is the strongest among his kind. That bravado turns into a desperate challenge as he convinces himself he can still win. The young man answers with a single crushing blow to the head that instantly breaks that illusion. The attacker is launched away like debris, completely outmatched. The victor stays on him and drives forward again before he can recover. Another devastating strike lands flush, folding the man under the force. He continues the beating in mid-motion, treating the fight as a merciless execution. The battered thug is hurled high and far, helpless in the air. He slams into the ground hard enough to crater the street. From the darkness of the dust and wreckage, the victor's gaze narrows with inhuman intensity. His red eyes emerge first, making him seem more like a monster than a person. Standing over the broken man, he reminds him that he had already been warned never to come near him again. He demands to know what part of that warning was not understood. The thug, barely conscious and full of regret, realizes this terrifying strength was never a bluff and tries to apologize. The young man silences him by jamming a knife to his mouth and makes it clear that any sound could get him killed. Looking into those eyes, the thug finally understands that the threat is completely real. To him, the young man now looks like someone forged by unbearable suffering and driven past mercy. The warning becomes more deliberate as he orders the thug to remember every word that follows. He declares that he does not care what happens to these men, but if they ever bother him again or try to harm his sister, he will come for them. He promises to erase them one by one without hesitation if they cross that line. Then he forces the broken man to acknowledge the message. The thug can only tremble and cry, too terrified to resist. Satisfied that the threat has landed, the young man turns away and leaves the survivor trapped in fear and rubble. The violence gives way to the song's image of a sky returning to normal, hinting at a calmer memory beneath his rage. The black-haired girl feels an unexpected loneliness from the song, as if it is carrying someone else's sorrow. She cannot understand why it moves her so deeply, but it brings her to tears. Thinking of her brother, she struggles to reconcile this sadness with the short time they have known each other, and wonders how someone with her beside him could feel so alone. She calls out to him, half worried and half trying to shake him out of whatever heavy mood has taken hold. The scene shifts into a softer memory as he stands before her with a small box in hand. He gently offers her a gift, addressing her affectionately as Yunny. When she sees the holographic pen inside, her surprise turns into delighted disbelief at how extravagant it is. Her excitement immediately becomes concern as she realizes how expensive it must have been and wonders how he could afford it. His inner thoughts reveal the truth behind the gift. He is trying to make up for a past life in which he failed to protect her, and even failed to protect her dream. He remembers a vow that in this life he will protect everything precious to him. That promise is rooted in the memory of a brutal street attack, with the wounded crying for an ambulance while he was powerless to stop the damage. In the present, his sister experiments with a special pen that projects light into the air. When the device successfully creates holographic fish, she is thrilled that it really works. Her brother indulges her excitement, and happily praises her cooking, pleased that she enjoys the gift. She immediately worries about their finances and scolds him for spending money when rent is still a burden. He shocks her by revealing that he has already paid the entire year's rent. Trying to avoid further questions, he claims he made the money through a small business with a friend. She sees through the lie at once and realizes he is hiding something important from her. Even so, her suspicion gives way to a more private realization. She notices how genuinely happy he looks, a smile she has not seen from him in a very long time. Moved by that change, she reaches out to him with quiet affection. She tells him that whatever happens, he must not push himself too hard. He accepts her concern with a soft, reassuring calm. Elsewhere, doctors report that Qiandi's injuries are catastrophic, with most of his body fractured. His condition is so severe that even elite treatment could not fully heal him within a month. Qian reflects on how reckless it was to challenge him, while also noting that Qiandi was beaten into this state. A woman points out that this means Qiandi will likely miss the graduation exam. Qian dismisses the setback, coldly insisting his team is better off without dead weight. His detached cruelty leaves the room tense rather than surprised. Gong Xian, the university's career director, recognizes that Qian is once again the source of trouble. He reports that he has reviewed the latest internal ranking results. Those results confirm that another student has reached C rank and now stands above Qian in school standing. That revelation clearly catches Qian's attention. Gong Xian warns him that his father, the Alliance vice chairman, will personally observe the graduation exam, so he cannot afford to let anyone else take the spotlight. He also hints that if things go badly, there is still one opening left on Gong Ting's team. The woman frames that fallback as a favor they could still request if Qian fails. Qian rejects the concern outright and says they are worrying for nothing. He reminds them that he never used his full power during the ranking assessment. He promises that at the combat examination he will prove his superiority to everyone. In his mind, the exam will settle once and for all who is strongest. Late that night in the dormitory, the protagonist continues training alone under the shower. After finishing a weighted 10-kilometer run, he reflects that the family's immediate money problems are solved and he can finally pursue his real objective after graduation. That objective is to win first place in the graduation exam and claim the 1 million prize. He also intends to repay Qing Ji and preserve an alliance he expects to need in the future. Lying in bed, he measures the time left and realizes the examination is less than a month away. He concludes that he still needs to level up several more times before then. At that moment, the glutton system activates again. He is drawn into a strange realm dominated by a towering, ominous structure. As he approaches, the place feels like a forbidden monument waiting to be opened. Reviewing his status, he notes that his weakest revealed class, Gravehound King, is only C rank. His stronger class, Abyssal Fiend, has no displayed official rank because the system says its true value cannot yet be determined. With two of his remaining classes also still unmeasured, he realizes much of his real ceiling remains unknown. The system then presents an SSS rank item, the Time Rift Key, which can unlock the gates of the Tower of Darkness. When the key is used, the sealed entrance begins to open. A massive violet vortex forms beyond the gate, and he decides to test what lies inside the Tower of Darkness. He steps into the portal without hesitation. The moment he arrives, he senses that this place is unlike anything he expected. He finds himself in the Fallen Star Wastes, a stark alien landscape beneath a cosmic sky. Before he can take it in, Something unseen startles him and puts him instantly on guard. Sichin arrives on the new floor and nearly collapses under crushing pressure. He realizes the fallen star waste has gravity around 10 times normal, making even movement a struggle. As he assesses the situation, he concludes the entrance has vanished, and the only way forward is to kill this floor's boss, though in his condition he can barely use a fraction of his power. Before he can adapt, a massive presence approaches across the barren ground. The boss reveals itself as a phantom lion, a B-rank star warrior monster. Knowing his current class is a bad match, Sichin forces a class change despite the strain. He completes the switch to Lightning Assassin and identifies the lion as the enemy he must bring down. The phantom lion attacks immediately, lunging before he can settle into the fight. Sichin evades at the last moment and tries to counter while it passes. Feeling his body respond with renewed speed, he decides to end the battle quickly. His lightning strike lands poorly, and both the killing blow and paralysis effect fail. The failed hit shocks him, because he expected the opening to be decisive. He realizes the extreme gravity has ruined his precision, while the monster has fully adapted to this environment. That advantage becomes obvious as the lion keeps moving with unnatural ease. Sichin understands that brute force alone will not work here and wonders if the answer lies in the Purgatory Magic Tower's own power system. He switches again, this time into Purgatory Rakshasa. The new class grants him gravity-based abilities and stronger close-range stats, making it better suited for this battlefield. Recognizing the class advantage, he commits to a direct melee exchange. He slams into the phantom lion with overwhelming force and drives it into the ground. Then he stacks his gravity manipulation higher and higher, pushing his attack into extreme amplification. In a place already saturated with gravity, his punch becomes dozens of times stronger than normal. The empowered blow crushes into the lion at point-blank range. As the monster reels, Sichin bears down on it without letting up. He activates Tri-Phase Gravity Calamity in Super Heavy mode and refuses to give the boss any chance to recover. The battle ends with Sichin left battered and barely able to move. The system confirms the kill and awards him a Phantom Lion Bone while the impact crater marks how hard he had to push himself. He gains experience, levels up to 11, and lies there catching his breath. While recovering, he reflects that a class card stars determine how much it multiplies his base stats. Comparing his options, he notes that Purgatory Rakshasa has more stars than Lightning Assassin, so its overall amplification is greater. Even so, defeating only a B-rank monster shows that his current classes still have not broken into true A-rank territory. That thought leads him to a more troubling inconsistency. He notices the dead monster left no devourable mark, unlike previous kills. At the same time, the gate to the next floor still does not appear. Sichin begins to suspect the lion was never the real boss. A dark portal opens nearby, confirming his fear. Within it, multiple glowing eyes stare back from the darkness. He realizes the true Lord of the Floor has not shown itself yet. The truth becomes clear when several phantom lions emerge at once, proving the one he killed was only a minor creature. Before he can recover, the pack descends on him. They tear into him from all sides, and he finally understands the real meaning of the Rakshasa path. The lesson of this place is that once the gate opens, what awaits him is endless pain. To survive, he must endure every attack without breaking. And beyond endurance, he must conquer the suffering itself if he wants power. Sichin jolts awake from the ordeal, gasping as if the battle had been real. He finds himself back in his dorm room, shaken from the dream while his roommate still sleeps nearby. Even awake, he can still feel the remembered agony of flesh tearing and bone straining, and he knows the pain was no illusion. He accepts that becoming stronger will demand real suffering, and that his solitary road through purgatory has only begun. The next day, attention shifts to National Awakener University's graduation combat assessment and team formation ceremony. At the auditorium, faculty and officials gather to oversee the event. Among the students, word spreads that high-ranking members of the Guild Alliance will personally attend to watch the assessment. As the new team rules are announced, the students realize this year's assessment has become much stricter than before. Sichin notes that teams now need at least 5 members and at least 1 high-tier student, unlike previous years when rank did not matter. While the class wonders why the school made the exam more competitive, the administrator cuts off the speculation and takes control of the room. He informs them that everyone's rank data has already been sent to their wristbands and orders them to form teams immediately. The students eagerly pull up their rankings, expecting the list to settle the scramble for alliances. The roster reveals each student's name, rank, and whether they already have a team, turning the room into a marketplace of value. One bespectacled student suddenly notices something is wrong with Sichin's result. The list places Sichin at low E rank, near the very bottom. His classmates are stunned, because someone they thought was far stronger has somehow been reduced to one of the weakest ranks. Others quickly remember that Sichin had previously tested at C rank, making the downgrade feel impossible. The mood shifts from admiration to contempt as students decide his earlier reputation must have been false and abandon any thought of teaming with him. Sichin understands at once that this ranking will isolate him and ruin his chances of finding allies. Around the room, students openly dismiss low-level classmates as dead weight and regret ever trying to recruit them. Gong Ting watches the fallout in silence, taking in how quickly the room turns cruel. At the front, the director calmly observes the chaos he has set in motion. He privately mocks his nephew and reflects that the boy still does not understand how power and human nature can be manipulated. Confident in his control, the director decides to teach him a harsher lesson by ensuring even weak opponents can crush him. As the order to form teams is repeated, the room erupts into a desperate rush for useful partners. Students swarm Gongting, begging to be accepted because his strength offers the safest path to success. More and more classmates pile on, each trying to prove they deserve a place on his team. The crowd becomes so unruly that someone has to shout them down and remind everyone that only one slot remains. Half an hour later, most groups have locked in their members and confirmed their teams. Celebration spreads through the room as successful teams rally themselves, while one small cluster remains left out. Si Chen's dorm mates report that no matter how many people they ask, nobody is willing to join them. With only 4 people, they realize they may not even qualify to take the graduation exam. One of them points out that Si Chen being ranked dead last makes the whole situation feel deliberately suspicious. Si Chen pieces it together. Because a team needs 5 members and 1 high-tier student, someone is likely targeting their dorm specifically. He reminds them that the graduation battle exam is everyone's only real chance to display their ability and secure a future career. He explains that the final exam scales the number of monsters to the number of team members, so team size alone does not guarantee an advantage. In other words, adding more people increases both strength and burden, so weak members can still drag a team down. That is why even powerful leaders like Gong Ting avoid low-rank students, leaving Si Chen's group with almost no appeal. The problem is even worse because the school's 3 lowest E-rank students all come from their dorm, making them toxic to recruit. Just as their prospects seem hopeless, someone calls out to Xiangzhua. Another team tries to poach him by warning that staying with 3 low E-ranks could cost him his chance to graduate. Si Chen realizes that if this continues, the 3 weakest among them will simply be abandoned by everyone else. That would leave them disqualified before the exam even begins. Xiangzhua hesitates, apologizing as if he might give in to the pressure. Instead, he refuses to betray his dorm mates and chooses loyalty over a safer team. The recruiters lash out, insulting him as worthless filler and resenting his refusal. Meanwhile, the roster keeps updating, and more empty slots disappear as the last viable teams are completed. Their bespectacled friend panics when he sees that almost everyone already has a team and only a few high-tier students remain unclaimed. Si Chen turns toward the front, his attention settling on the person truly responsible. He identifies the director of career services, Gong Xian, and realizes the shared surname means he is probably related to Gong Ting. Si Chen concludes that Gong Xian altered his rank from C rank to low E rank to isolate him, likely as a warning tied to Gong Ting's interests. Rather than accept being shut out, Si Chen resolves that he will take the graduation exam no matter what. He initiates a class change, deciding that if they want to target him openly, he will answer in kind. The transformation completes in a burst of power, and Si Chen steps forward with no intention of staying polite. He makes it clear that proving himself will not wait for the official exam, immediately drawing the adults' alarmed attention. His dorm mates are shocked as they realize he is about to do something reckless in front of everyone. Si Chen invokes the university's tradition that students may challenge one another at any time, turning the room into the stage for his counterattack. Si Chen makes a deliberately provocative move, openly displaying his strength because he knows that if he defeats a major rival, ambitious students will come to his side. The room understands how reckless that is, since almost no one would challenge others so publicly without a larger plan. Gong Ting watches in silence, immediately recognizing Si Chen as a serious obstacle. Si Chen's intent becomes clear: beat Gong Ting first, then use that victory to attract strong recruits. Before that contest can settle, someone calls out to Si Chen and asks whether his team is still recruiting. The newcomer, Ling Yu, announces that she wants to take this year's graduation examination as well. She lightly presents herself as a former D-rank student and claims she would only hold the team back, making her offer sound harmless. Her appearance beside Si Chen shocks the room, because no one expected someone of her status to associate with an outsider like him. The surprise is even worse for one student who realizes this is his own cousin and cannot believe what she just volunteered. The supervising director reacts violently, sensing the situation slipping out of his control. As Ling Yu walks in, whispers spread that the student council vice president is joining a team everyone had dismissed as trash. Rumors quickly elevate the stakes further, since she is said to be an exchange student with a mysterious background and exceptional talent. The director tries to stop her formally, arguing that as an exchange student she is not eligible to participate. He adds that she has no recorded rank transfer or recent reports, so allowing her in would break the school's rules. The principal suddenly appears and immediately backs the objection, startling everyone present. His arrival shocks the director, who had not expected the principal to involve himself at all. The principal publicly distances Ling Yu from the school and questions why she is entangling herself in this matter. Si Chen is briefly distracted by the principal's unexpected teleportation ability, realizing this man is far more unusual than his title suggested. The principal presses the point, saying it would be unfair for Ling Yu to enter an exam meant to reveal students' true abilities, and she mockingly agrees. Si Chen studies them closely, sensing there is more hidden here than either of them is saying. He realizes he cannot read the rank of either the principal or Ling Yu, confirming that both are concealing their true level. The director hurriedly sides with the principal and hides behind the school's reputation for strict rule following. The principal then turns the discussion into a broader speech about the university's mission to cultivate elite awakeners for the world. He frames the graduation battle exam as a long-standing tradition and a defining moment in every student's future. From there, he argues that denying students this chance because of special circumstances would damage the school's credibility. The director panics, realizing the principal's words may be aimed at exposing his own behind-the-scenes tampering. He suspects the principal and Ling Yu are working together to protect Si-Chen and wonders why that boy matters so much. Unable to confront the principal directly, the director decides to retreat and preserve himself. Instead, he quietly reassures Gong Ting that the strongest students have already been claimed by other teams, so Si-Chen should still be easy to beat. Forced to adapt, the director suddenly praises the principal's reasoning and invents an official exception for underfilled teams to enter the exam. He formally declares that teams with fewer than 5 members, or even individuals with no team, may still participate. With that ruling, Si-Chen's side is recognized as a valid team. His new teammates celebrate securing entry into the exam and immediately acknowledge Si-Chen as their captain. Watching the result, the principal remarks that Ling Yu's interest in Si-Chen is much stronger than he expected. He weighs the coming clash between Gong Ting, leader of the strongest team in school history, and Si-Chen, the most discussed new talent in the academy. The principal becomes curious which dungeon each side will choose and how many points they can ultimately earn. Once the teams are finalized, the staff announces that each captain may now select a dungeon for the exam. Almost immediately, a submission arrives, astonishing the staff with how quickly one team has decided. Everyone learns that Si-Chen's team made the first choice, and the room turns toward the screen in alarm. That alarm becomes outright disbelief when people see which dungeon he selected. His own teammates panic and beg him to undo the decision, convinced he has chosen something insane. Si-Chen remains calm, showing that he made the choice knowingly. The rules are then laid out. Students enter a real dungeon and earn points by defeating monsters and monster lords. One part of the score comes from clearing the dungeon completely, with surviving enemies reducing the total. Another major score comes from defeating the dungeon boss, though failing to do so carries no penalty. A third category rewards speed, with the score dropping the longer a team takes beyond the 1-hour mark. The final total is then modified by the dungeon's rank, since harder dungeons carry larger score multipliers. The comparison shown makes the key difference obvious. An F-rank dungeon gives only a modest bonus, while an E-rank doubles the score. As a result, an F-rank run can reach only 75 points, but an E-rank run can reach 100. Si-Chen's shocking choice is revealed as a calculated gamble for the maximum possible score by taking an E-rank dungeon. The school announces that every member of the highest scoring team will earn a chance to join the Imperial Guild. On top of that, the class MVP will be directly recruited into guild management and receive a huge cash prize, making the coming exam even more important. Students note that the school record is 90 points, set by the current leader of the Imperial Guild, and warn that even an E-rank dungeon would require at least 3 D ranks on one team. As Gong Ting's strong team studies the options, others believe they may be capable of breaking the school's all-time record. Before most teams can even settle in, a submission alert suddenly goes out. The room is stunned to learn that the team acting first is Si-Chen's. The shock deepens when everyone sees that his team has chosen a D-rank dungeon. Si-Chen calmly locks in the D-rank choice and waits for his teammates to respond. His classmates are horrified, since no one has ever cleared a D-rank dungeon before, and they wonder if he made a reckless mistake. Even when confronted directly, Si-Chen remains unfazed while others demand to know if he understands what he has done. One teammate nearly panics, convinced he has been trapped on a suicidal team. The system forces each member to decide whether to follow their captain into the D-rank dungeon, leaving them little room to escape. A worried teammate tries one last time to make Si-Chen understand that a D-rank is far beyond normal expectations. Si-Chen answers simply that he chose it deliberately. Another submission comes in, showing that one teammate has accepted the D-rank plan. That confirmation makes it clear the decision is spreading through the team. The room erupts again as people realize a second student has also committed to the D-rank dungeon. Watching the chaos, Gong Ting welcomes the development as something that will make this year far more interesting. His allies mock Si-Chen's team as arrogant fools pretending to be tougher than they are. They dismiss the choice as a stunt by students who expect to fail anyway and just want attention. They keep laughing, convinced that once the reality of a D-rank sinks in, Si-Chen's teammates will back out. But one of Si-Chen's teammates studies him in silence instead of joining the ridicule. He realizes Si-Chen is acting with a new kind of resolve and strength that he never used to show. That realization pushes him toward a decision. Remembering their years together, he chooses loyalty and confirms that he will stay with Si-Chen to the end. Another teammate follows, deciding that since they were already expected to finish last, they might as well commit fully and see what a D-rank dungeon is really like. Only one hesitant member remains unconvinced. He protests that the others are dragging him into disaster and asks how he is supposed to survive if he is the last holdout. In the end, fear of being left behind and a burst of reckless solidarity push him to confirm as well. With every member now committed, Team Si-Chen officially submits for the D-rank dungeon. Facing his teammates, Si-Chen finally addresses them directly. He apologizes and admits that he chose the D-rank because he wants to claim the MVP title. That confession makes clear he knowingly forced all of them into his personal gamble. But instead of backing down, he asks them to chase the top score with him. His declaration draws an immediate challenge from Gong Ting, who openly claims the MVP for himself. Si-Chen turns to face the threat without flinching. Gong Ting makes their rivalry explicit. declaring that only one student can stand as the strongest in the school. Even observers notice that Gong Ting is showing a level of seriousness towards Xichen that he never revealed before. Everyone understands that the long-buried conflict between those two has finally surfaced in public. An older observer praises the student's boldness and ambition. But another warns that Xichen's choice is still dangerously overconfident, because even a top student should not be able to solo a D-rank dungeon. The risk is enormous because a D-rank offers a triple score multiplier and a maximum of 150 points. Yet that reward comes with difficulty even greater than an A-rank exam, making Xichen's underpowered team a terrible match for it on paper. With only a little over a month left before the battle examination, the pressure to become worthy of that choice becomes immediate. The expectation is that Xichen's team must raise their abilities drastically in a very short time if they want any chance at all. While other students train in advanced combat simulations, the standard path still seems far beyond what Xichen's team can currently handle. 17 days before the exam, Xichen has his exhausted teammates training outside instead. They complain bitterly that everyone else is using the monster combat simulator while they are being run ragged by basic physical drills. As they list dodgeball, shuttle runs, sprints, and distance running, they question why any of this matters for the graduation exam. Xichen explains that at this stage, more simulated elemental practice will not change the outcome, because a simulation is still only a simulation. A student reflects that when real danger suddenly appears in an unfamiliar dungeon, survival depends less on theory than on instinct. He imagines facing a monstrous predator and realizes that in the final moment, only raw battle instinct can keep someone alive. Their current training is therefore focused on building the body and sharpening reflexes so those instincts can emerge under pressure. He argues that school simulations barely matter compared with the experience gained by fighting inside a real dungeon. But he also points out the unfair reality that ordinary students are shut out of real dungeons, which are reserved for the privileged from the start. In his mind, that inequality becomes a violent divide between those allowed to grow stronger and everyone else left behind. He explains that the powerful keep training within controlled dungeons to widen the gap and preserve their dominance over outsiders. From birth, those elites have lived with advantages others can only chase. To him, they already possess the strength and opportunity that ordinary people spend their lives trying to reach. One of his friends, frustrated by that system, demands to know what people like them can possibly do about it. He answers with a bold plan: enter the Imperial Guild and shatter the social barrier in front of everyone. He insists the graduation combat exam is their only real chance to rise above the students born ahead of them. Privately, he sees the exam as his own best opportunity to surpass those elites as well. He commits himself to that promise and declares that they will win. With 15 days left, he throws himself into brutal dungeon training in the Dream Tower's Starfall Barrens. The training is savage, and he is slashed bloody while fighting powerful beasts head-on. Even as the attacks keep landing, he continues forcing himself through the pain to grow stronger. 10 days before the exam, he also drives his team through exhausting physical drills, refusing to let them fall behind. At the same time, he keeps battling in the dungeon, pushing his body against overwhelming enemies. Elsewhere, another elite fighter trains just as intensely, cutting down monsters with practiced ease. 5 days remain, and the protagonist is still grinding through punishing strength training while his teammates struggle to keep up. 3 days before the exam, the elite swordsman continues his own relentless preparation amid fire and destruction. With 2 days left, the protagonist clears another dungeon challenge and earns progress toward the Volt Assassin path. 1 day before the exam, battered and bloodied, he decides that the true fight is only beginning. At last, June 17, 2157 arrives, graduation combat exam day. A cheerful escort drone greets the examinees and takes charge of guiding them through the test. As the students prepare, one mysterious participant quietly adjusts a dark mask, hinting at hidden intentions. The examinees gather in uniform with their weapons, tense and ready as the final evaluation begins. The exam is officially launched as energy surges through the testing area. At National Awakened University, important guests begin arriving under heavy security to observe the event. The school principal personally welcomes President Gong, signaling the importance of the visitors. The newcomer is revealed to be Gong Lin, co-founder of the Imperial Guild and father of Gong Ting. Students watching from above are stunned that one of the Imperial Guild's founders has come in person. Their excitement grows when they notice another distinguished guest arriving behind him. A second VIP steps out of the car under guard, drawing immediate attention. He is identified as Carl Cavendish, vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance. The onlookers are shocked that someone of such global stature has come all the way to their school. They realize the administration cleared the area because figures this influential almost never appear in person. Some students even imagine that being noticed by these leaders could change their entire future. Inside the control room, officials explain that 184 students are competing, divided into 28 teams. Most teams selected F-rank layers, a few chose E-rank layers, and only 2 dared to attempt D-rank layers. Sigrid, the Guild Alliance Secretary General, is surprised that any students would risk entering D-rank layers at all. She warns that even professional guild parties can be wiped out there and questions whether the students were properly informed. The school assures her they explained the danger, but admits most students are so inexperienced that even ordinary F-rank monsters are difficult for them. An example from an F-rank lair shows a thornjaw salamander, the kind of enemy students are expected to handle. Even that supposedly manageable threat can overwhelm unprepared students. proving how dangerous the exam already is at the lowest level. The officials then stress that E-rank lairs are on an entirely different level, showing frightened students trapped inside one. There, every creature is as dangerous as an F-rank boss, turning the lair into a nest of deadly stag beetle spiders. Faced with that reality, a terrified student realizes the challenge is far beyond what they expected, making an E-rank clear nearly impossible for most examinees. Sigrid immediately presses the school on the crucial question of what protection exists if a student ends up in real danger. The academy head assures the Secretary General that students remain their highest priority. He explains that every lair is monitored by Imperial personnel who will intervene the moment a threat becomes extreme. To prove the danger is real, a D-rank monster nearly overwhelms 2 examinees before any rescue arrives. One terrified student immediately abandons the exam to save himself. The officials clarify that anyone who gives up is instantly teleported out of the lair. Even so, they note that some teams have entered harder D-rank zones, and the observers become curious about this school's talent. The headmaster's confidence turns cold as he admits he wants to see how long those students can endure. Watching a live feed of a snowy lair, he assumes the children will soon lose their nerve. At the summit of a high-risk cloud forest lair, one team presses deeper into the blizzard. They encounter their target, a ghost bat monkey, a fast D-rank assassin that looks far more unsettling than expected. Sichin quickly identifies it as a cloud-type monster that specializes in group attacks and sudden aerial dives, warning everyone to stay alert. Before the team can settle, more shapes gather above them, revealing they are already being surrounded. A whole pack dives at once, turning the encounter into an ambush. Sichin catches the attack first, and warns the others just in time. His warning lets one teammate barely evade a killing strike. Another student crashes through the snow but survives the near miss. A third also escapes by a hair as the monsters tear past. Shaken but alive, the team realizes they have just dodged a coordinated D-rank assault. The monsters slam into the ground and immediately prepare to strike again. One teammate stares in disbelief as he notices Sichin has already moved. In an instant, Sichin cuts down 3 D-rank monsters by himself, leaving the others stunned by the gap between them. Without boasting, he tells them they are too weak to handle this fight, and orders them to stay back and protect themselves. He takes full responsibility for the battle and launches himself at the remaining pack. The monster's next rush forces the others to scatter again, while Sichin keeps drawing the danger away from them. One of the boys is still thrown hard into a tree, showing how little margin for error they have. As he recovers, he bitterly realizes their earlier training was never meant to help Sichin at all, only to keep the weaker students alive. That thought deepens into shame as he understands Sichin has been carrying the team this whole time. Meanwhile, Sichin tears through more attackers with overwhelming speed and lightning-charged strikes. The surviving bat monkeys keep swarming him, trying to overwhelm him through numbers. He answers by carving through the pack so violently that the battlefield fills with falling bodies. Watching this, his teammate finally accepts that Ma Long was right about Sichin's strength. Sichin's relentless efficiency makes him look less like a student and more like a seasoned combat veteran. The others can only watch as he dominates the battlefield alone. That helplessness turns inward, and one of them admits to himself that he has been left far behind. Before they can dwell on it, another monster dives from behind toward the exposed students. Ma Long intercepts the attack with a burst of fire, proving Sichin is not the only one willing to fight. He reinforces himself with flame and braces for close combat. Standing against the descending monster, Ma Long reminds the others they cannot let Sichin shoulder everything. His words snap the team out of passive fear and force them to remember this trial belongs to all of them. Ma Long openly declares that this is their graduation assessment too, not just Sichin's. Another teammate immediately agrees and gathers his own power to join in. He casts Vine Lock, sending twisting plants upward to seize the monster. The vines catch it for a moment and create the opening they need. But the ghost bat monkey tears free almost instantly and knocks the caster back, showing brute force alone will not hold it. The failed restraint makes clear that their attacks need coordination, not isolated effort. A bespectacled teammate steps in with Frost Breeze, slowing the monster's movement with cold air. He calls for Xianyu to attack together now that the target has been hindered. Xianyu answers by charging his fist with green power, ready to trap the monster before it can escape again. Their combined technique freezes and binds the creature at once, finally pinning it in place for a finishing blow. With the opening secured, Ma Long gathers a blazing fireball and moves in to end the fight. A fire mage opens the fight by launching a named burst flame attack straight at the ghost bat monkey. The spell detonates on impact in a blinding explosion, forcing the monster to take the hit head-on. The ghost bat monkey shrieks through the flames, injured but clearly not finished. Realizing the creature is tougher than expected, the attacker keeps pressure on it with a barrage of fire shots. The repeated blasts hammer the monster and drive it back as the team commits to overwhelming it. At the same time, another student strains to keep his own power under control, admitting he cannot suppress it any longer. A bespectacled teammate also reaches his limit, showing that the whole group is burning through everything they have. With no room left to hold back, the fire mage decides to gamble everything on one final all-out spell. He begins to declare the finishing move as his power peaks and his focus narrows completely on the kill. His converged burst flame bullet crashes down in a massive explosion that finally ends the monster. A hovering system confirms the result and congratulates the team for successfully killing a ghost bat monkey. The exhausted students collapse into celebration, stunned that they really managed to bring down a D-rank monster. Sichin stays quiet apart from the others, watching the aftermath with a more measured reaction. While the others rush to collect proof of the kill, the reward is identified as a ghost bat monkey finger bone. One teammate boasts that the whole fight was easy, trying to turn the victory into confidence. Standing amid the wreckage, Sichin receives praise from the floating assistant for helping lead the team to success. Elsewhere, an older observer is left shaken that students with almost no combat experience achieve this at all. The result is treated as extraordinary because they killed a D-rank monster despite being below that level. Other high-level viewers remain silent, taking in the implication of what they have just seen. A composed young man in the audience notes that this year's participants are performing far better than expected. As Sichen's image appears, attention shifts from the team's success to him in particular. The seated observer recognizes something familiar in Sichen's face, as if he resembles someone from the past. He remembers Sichen's name, and realizes exactly why the boy stands out to him. That recognition unsettles another observer, who keeps his reaction tightly restrained. Even the host is rattled for a moment before forcing himself back into control. He quickly redirects everyone's attention to another team that had been dismissed earlier for choosing a D-rank dungeon. The broadcast shows that second team already fighting with sharp, disciplined teamwork against monsters inside the dungeon. An observer remarks that their coordination is so polished they resemble a professional guild raid squad. The seated young man grows more interested, impressed by how strong this graduating class appears to be. The host tempers the excitement by warning that the real test has only just begun. The scene shifts deeper into the dungeon, where the team enters the glowing grotto and faces a swarm of noxious toadstool flower soldiers. A flower chanter unleashes a withering hymn that weakens the monster's strength, stamina, and speed all at once. Using that opening, a star mage orders the team to gather the enemies together for a finishing strike. He detonates the clustered monsters with astral fusion, wiping them out in one concentrated blast. Their captain, Gong Ting, steps in with calm precision as the team advances without losing momentum. He cuts through the next threat with Searing Fracture, showing why he leads the group. His identity is formally revealed as Gong Ting, a C-rank flame soldier and the team's clear powerhouse. His teammates treat the dungeon casually, noting that these monsters are the same kind they already practiced against at school. One of them jokes that the graduation exam must have been rigged in the Gong family's favor, since knowing the right people makes everything easier. Confident they will become champions quickly, they move on toward the dungeon boss with no real sense of danger. Back in the snowy mountains, Sichen's team is suddenly hit by a violent shock that forces everyone to brace themselves. Sichen steadies first, his expression sharpening as he senses the threat before the others fully recover. The team realizes they have reached the summit of Cloudwood Peak, a D-rank high-risk dungeon, and can hardly believe they made it this far. Their relief dies when they find the Frostwraith Ape, a D-rank cloud soldier and the dungeon's true monster lord, feeding on prey. The others immediately understand how hopeless the gap is, admitting that one hit from that creature would kill them instantly. The ape lifts its head, its blood-red eyes locking onto them with murderous awareness. Panic breaks out as the team realizes the monster has noticed them. The Frostwraith Ape charges straight at them, turning the encounter into an immediate life-or-death crisis. Before anyone else can react, Sichin intercepts the attack alone and drives a lightning-charged kick into the ape's face. The blow launches the monster away in a crashing burst of ice and force, abruptly reversing the team's despair. A massive ice beast lunges in, but the black-haired examinee meets it head-on with a burst of crackling force. His attack tears through the creature's head before it can reach him. The monster is shredded apart in an instant, ending the fight almost before the others can process it. His teammates are stunned that he killed such a monster so effortlessly. As the body falls, he quietly receives experience and a new skill, Frostwraith Ape Fury. He finds the reward suspiciously small, concluding the dungeon lord must have been weak and the loot poor as well. Before he can dwell on it, the others discover a huge cache of mana crystals nearby. They rush toward a hollow tree packed with glittering ore and excitedly call everyone over. The group realizes the hollow is stuffed with mid-term mana crystals, far more valuable than expected. Greed takes over as they imagine selling the haul and securing their futures. Sensing danger, the black-haired boy tries to stop them, but the moment a hand reaches the crystals, a blinding trap activates. The others are caught before they can react, their excitement turning to shock. He understands too late that the treasure was bait. A freezing spell erupts across the area, Arctic Nova. Jagged ice engulfs the students, sealing them in place while their wristbands begin malfunctioning. The monitoring system loses contact with Team Sichin entirely. Watching from outside, one examiner coldly notes that the students fell for a high-level trap and implies their failure was deserved. Another points out that their lives are now clearly in danger and argues for immediate rescue. The senior authority overrules him and decides to wait a little longer. He justifies the decision by saying their wristbands still show stable vital signs and none of them has chosen to quit. So the examiners leave the choice to endure or withdraw in the student's own hands. Inside the frozen field, the bespectacled boy trembles in pain and terror as the cold overwhelms him. Trapped in ice, he realizes the freezing is spreading toward his core and that he may die if nothing changes. A sinister presence appears before him, confirming the trap was guarding something far worse. The true master of the dungeon reveals itself, a floating skeletal ice lord. The boy recognizes it from the monster manual as a cunning cloud elemental mage that paralyzes prey with ice and knockback before killing them. He identifies it specifically as the Frostbound Lich King, a rare and dangerous C-rank monster lord. Knowing he cannot defeat it alone, he desperately tries to flee and reach his frozen teammates. He forces himself across the ice, determined to hurry before they all die. The Lich punishes the attempt by driving an ice spike through his leg. He crashes to the ground screaming, his escape cut short. The Lich mocks his helplessness and enjoys watching him suffer. His wristband reports a critical injury to his lower left leg and offers him the chance to withdraw from the examination. He refuses immediately, deciding that quitting would doom Sichin to freeze to death. Instead, he gambles on his support skill, Perfect Origin, hoping it can cleanse the freezing if he can just reach his friend. He drags himself forward through the pain, even as another ice shard tears into his arm. His first purification attempt collapses, and he is thrown down again. The Lich laughs harder, convinced the struggle is pointless. It escalates the attack with frostbone skewers, surrounding him with more lethal ice while his wristband keeps urging withdrawal. Half-conscious and fading, he begins to understand why he has always been left behind by stronger people. Memories of being overlooked, ridiculed, and treated as if he did not matter flood back into him. He remembers how much he sacrificed just to reach this exam at all. He clings to the belief that this was finally his chance to change his life. That conviction hardens into defiance, and he swears he will never give up. With that resolve, he forces Perfect Origin to activate again and channels it directly into the frozen Sichin. He endures the strain and keeps pouring power through his hand despite the agony. The cleansing energy surges outward, colliding with the Lich's icy control over the battlefield. As the power intensifies, the frozen figure before him begins to respond under the purification. Still kneeling amid the ice, he drives the skill to its limit, trying to break Sichin free before the Lich can stop him. Trapped in the freezing assault, the bespectacled boy strains in panic as the pressure closes in. Sichin answers with a fierce, focused resolve, his lightning power flaring as he refuses to let the situation end here. He bursts forward at godlike speed and smashes through the ice, imprisoning his companion. The frostbound Lich King is visibly caught off guard by that sudden intervention. In an instant, Sichin reaches the trapped boy and pulls him free from the shattered ice. The rescued boy admits Sichin could only help so much and that he ultimately had to force himself out as well. Sichin dismisses the praise, checks whether the boy can still stand, and learns the injuries are under control for now. The boy quickly refocuses on the real threat, identifying their enemy as a C-rank cloud elemental monster lord, the frostbound Lich King, and warning that they cannot afford to be frozen again. Before he can say more, Sichin senses the danger first, and the boy realizes from his expression that something worse is coming. The Lich King unleashes an enormous Giga Frost Nova, a blast so massive that it dwarfs anything the boy expected. The monster revels in its own overwhelming power as the attack expands. Seeing the scale of the spell, the boy panics and realizes they have no normal way to survive it. The Frost Nova detonates across the battlefield in a catastrophic wave of ice. The Lich King laughs as it glides above the devastation, convinced it has secured victory. That confidence falters when it notices something impossible in the aftermath. At the center of the frozen destruction, a new force erupts upward, tearing through the ice field. Sichin emerges transformed into a grave-bound king, gaining a frost-based physique that grants immunity to cold and reverses low temperatures into increased power. For the first time, the Lich King reacts with genuine alarm. The boy stares at Sichin in disbelief, unable to reconcile this undead frost power with the lightning assassin he knew. He realizes Sichin may be one of the impossibly rare awakeners who possess more than one class. Sichin's altered form confirms that suspicion, showing he has awakened a second path. Accepting responsibility for putting the three of them in danger, Sichin initiates another change and decides to end the fight himself. His intent hardens as he commits fully to overwhelming the monster now. The transformation completes. Sichin becomes an abyssal fiend and declares that this strike will settle everything. The boy can only watch in stunned terror as Sichin's power rises yet again. The explanation becomes clear. While awakeners normally gain only one class, an almost non-existent few can awaken two. Those rare people are known as dual classers. They are so scarce that fewer than 10 exist worldwide, making them coveted by every guild. The boy starts to process that Sichin truly belongs to that legendary category. He counts Sichin's original lightning class as the first. Then he recognizes the frost undead class as the second. But Sichin's current state reveals something even more absurd. He has manifested a third class. That third form drives his physical ability to the limit, maximizing both stamina and strength. With that power gathered, Sichin launches himself straight at the Lich King. He brings down a colossal magenta slash that engulfs the battlefield and the monster alike. The boy realizes the crushing aura that had dominated them earlier now means nothing in front of Sichin's blade. The Lich King can only scream as the attack tears through it. Sichin finishes the battle with triple calamity in overload mode, cutting the monster down in a single decisive blow. The Lich King's body breaks apart and collapses into ruin across the snow. Victory follows immediately, and Sichin levels up from the kill. The boy, still reeling, admits he should have expected this much from Sichin after watching him erase a monster lord so effortlessly. Sichin calmly asks about their two other frozen allies, and the question jolts the boy into remembering them. Mortified, the boy rushes off to save Xiangzhua and Xiangyu, leaving Sichin beside the remains of the monster. Instead of walking away, Sichin activates Devour on the Lich King's corpse. A red light gathers in his hand as he begins absorbing the monster's essence. The devouring process intensifies, drawing the Lich King's power into him. Sichin closes his hand as the transfer locks in. Devouring completes, and he gains a new class from the frostbound Lich King itself, Cloud Mage, his first class taken from outside the dream realm. With another secret power added to his arsenal, Si-chin quietly takes stock of what he has become. The narrator explains that the Robocam had already identified the place as the Arctic Nova, so the audience should not have learned that from the test itself, and there is still time for the team to earn a perfect score. At that moment, Gong Ting receives a system notification. His class levels up, and he gains 1 stat point tied to his Lightning Assassin class. He realizes with surprise that the reward is a single star point. Elsewhere, Gong Ting's team is still fighting the giant man-eater vine boss inside Bloody Vine Grotto. One teammate panics as the D-rank boss proves far stronger than expected, and he can no longer keep the monster pinned down. Another teammate's lightning attack confirms their problem. The boss is too durable for them to hurt meaningfully. The vine monster shrugs off the attack and remains fully dangerous. It breaks free and violently throws the team back, ending any illusion that they still control the fight. The group admits this enemy is far beyond what their training prepared them for and starts to lose confidence. With no better option, they pin their hopes on Gong Ting and ask whether his side is ready. While the monster bears down on them, Gong Ting continues charging power with support from his teammates, and they wonder if he has built up enough yet. After stacking his strength repeatedly, Gong Ting decides he has reached the level he needs. He launches himself forward in a blazing rush and closes the distance in a single decisive attack. His fiery strike tears through the giant vine boss before it can recover. He follows through by unleashing the finishing technique with full commitment. The attack detonates in a burst of overwhelming light. Gong Ting's flame soldier skill, Sorrow Blade Burst, engulfs the boss and ends the battle outright. His teammates erupt in celebration, hailing their president as the one who carried them to victory. The team is officially credited with clearing the D-rank dungeon in only 35 minutes, a result they immediately recognize as extraordinary. They boast that the run earned 150 points and a perfect score, with no deaths and no record of anyone fleeing, and they rush to check the final results. As they leave, others note that even a lower F-rank Devil's Cave would normally take at least an hour to clear. The waiting room is full of failed examinees, and Gong Ting's team mocks them as people who must have quit early. The defeated candidates are still traumatized, with some barely able to accept that they are already safe. Others openly admit the monsters terrified them so badly that they could not continue. One of Gong Ting's allies notices a familiar figure among the exhausted survivors. He recognizes an opportunity and reacts with smug satisfaction. The group spots Si-chin resting with 2 companions and immediately judges him for supposedly bailing out of the test early. Si-chin remains calm and expressionless when they call him out. Gong Ting's side presses the insult, accusing him of failing the assessment despite acting confident before. Before the confrontation can continue, Gong Ting is called away. His companion points out that the vice chairman has arrived, and the team turns its attention from Si-chin to the far more important visitor. The newcomer begins by praising what he has seen. He publicly declares that today's performance was outstanding. The vice chairman and his entourage walk through the hall, drawing everyone's attention and instantly shifting the room's power balance. Gong Ting's team is awestruck, realizing that one of the most powerful men in the world is approaching them personally. Expecting recognition, Gong Ting prepares to greet him. But the vice chairman walks past Gong Ting instead, ignoring the hand offered to him. He stops in front of Si-chin and singles him out as the truly remarkable one. The vice chairman reveals the real feat. Someone cleared a D-rank Devil's Cave in just 21 minutes. He emphasizes that even an experienced professional guild raid team would struggle to match that achievement, making clear that his praise is meant for Si-chin. Gong Ting's side is stunned as they realize the people they mocked as quitters actually finished a harder dungeon in far less time. Si-chin remains composed while his companions nervously greet the vice chairman, fully aware of the sudden reversal. Si-chin identifies the visitor as Carl Cavendish, vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance and effectively the second most powerful figure in the world. Carl addresses Si-chin by name, confirming that he came here specifically for him. He then turns to Si-chin's father and praises the Gong family for raising such a gifted young leader, framing Si-chin's success as proof of elite lineage and training. Si-chin's father answers politely, but his strained expression shows he understands the weight of this attention. As Carl's praise continues, the father grows visibly uneasy, sensing implications beyond simple congratulations. Carl ends the exchange smoothly, saying it is late and that he should be going. As he leaves, onlookers marvel that the principal has personally come to recruit 2 once-in-a-millennium prodigies, confirming that Si-chin and his side have become the true focus of the day. An official announces that both top teams have qualified to join the Empire Guild after the championship ends. The students erupt in celebration, thrilled that their future in a major guild is already secured. As others dream aloud about instant success after graduation, one of the tied champions remains silent and withdrawn. The official adds that both captains, Ting and Si-chin, will also receive core management positions and split the 1 million MVP prize equally. That final detail sharpens the rivalry, because either of the 2 champions is willing to accept an equal share. Si-chin immediately fixates on the reduced payout, realizing it leaves him short of the money he urgently needs to repay. Refusing to let the tie stand, the other champion steps forward with a challenge, insisting there can be only one true winner. He openly demands a one-on-one tiebreaker against Si-chin. The sudden challenge catches the officials and onlookers off guard. Even the higher-ups turn their attention to the dispute as the atmosphere shifts from celebration to confrontation. The official tries to shut the idea down, arguing that a tie for first is already an ideal result, and that the assessment is over. but the challenger presses on, making it clear he intends to set terms rather than back down. Sichin cuts straight to what matters to him and asks whether winning would let him claim the full million. The official is stunned that money is his first concern. The challenger accepts without hesitation and offers Sichin everything if Sichin can beat him. Watching this unfold, an influential observer becomes intrigued and decides the contest is not finished yet. The two champions square off as equals, ready to decide the matter directly. Sichin demands the practical terms, asking how the tiebreaker will be settled. Later, a wealthy backer tells Sichin he had expected him to place first, but not to shatter the record with a perfect score. Pleased with his own investment, the man says Sichin's fame proves he chose well and even waives repayment of the 1.5 million for now. Sichin refuses that leniency and insists on treating the money as a debt that must be repaid. His answer shows that he is determined to stand on his own rather than live on favors. He explains that he came for two reasons, beginning with the debt deadline. Because the tied result left him with only half the expected prize, he asks for a 1-week extension. He then reveals the plan behind that request. In 1 week he will fight the other champion in a tiebreaker at Wild Devil's Cave outside the school. The investor is alarmed that two students intend to enter such a dangerous place. Sichin stays calm, saying they have no professional guild training anyway and that once he wins, he will recover the missing 500,000. To secure the extension, he sweetens the deal by offering all materials he obtains from Wild Devil's Cave as interest. The investor is struck by Sichin's nerve, noting that he fears neither the cave nor the risk and thinks only about honoring the debt. Sichin then says there is another, even more important reason for his visit. He steels himself before bringing up the matter that truly weighs on him. The investor listens closely, sensing the conversation is about to turn serious. Sichin finally asks the question he has been holding back. The request visibly unsettles the investor. After a tense pause, the man begins to respond. He rises in uneasy silence, showing that whatever Sichin asked has touched a sensitive subject. The story then shifts to the afternoon of June 17th at Chinshui Middle School, when the final exams have just ended. A cheerful girl celebrates the start of summer vacation with the carefree excitement of an ordinary student. But as she checks her phone, her mood softens when she remembers that this date is also the day of her brother's graduation assessment. That realization pulls her out of her excitement and into concern for him. Looking at a photo of them together, she recalls how important this day is for her brother. Her thoughts go back 4 years, when he proudly showed her his admission to National Awakener University after his elemental potential was detected. Back then, she looked at him with awe and asked if he would become an awakener like their parents. He confidently promised that he would join a top guild, earn a fortune, and give her a better life. He also believed becoming stronger would let him uncover the truth behind their parents' disappearance. She trusted him completely, convinced he would become an extraordinary awakener. But not long ago, that confidence had eroded, and he was left wondering why he still had not awakened even as a senior. His sister tried to comfort him, refusing to let his failure define him. He forced a smile and told her he only needed to keep working harder. Yet in the end, despite entering the best university and training harder than anyone, he became the only one who failed to awaken. Xiao Yun broods over how her brother hid his struggles, realizing he must have been carrying his burden alone. Her thoughts are interrupted when a classmate excitedly pulls her into the latest school gossip. The girl announces that the National Awakener University produced twin top graduates this year. As they walk, she explains that both student leaders earned perfect scores and were personally praised by the Guild Alliance vice chairman, making the whole county proud. She then remembers Xiao Yun's brother attends that school and asks if he was involved too, forcing Xiao Yun into an awkward response. Before Xiao Yun can answer, a pink-haired senior greets her directly, catching both girls off guard. He smoothly tells Xiao Yun he has already reserved a private room in the evening building and expects her to be free at 6. Xiao Yun freezes under the implication, while her friend instantly reads it as a romantic invitation. Mortified and unwilling to deal with it, Xiao Yun bolts away on the spot. Her friend is left scrambling after her, bewildered by Xiao Yun's sudden escape. As she runs, Xiao Yun bitterly compares the celebrated success of other students with her own brother's failure to even awaken. Heartbroken for him, she decides the only thing she can do is hurry home and cook a feast to cheer him up. That night, the siblings meet in their rented apartment. Xiao Yun lays out an extravagant hot pot dinner, turning her concern into a full celebration at home. Her brother is stunned by the spread and asks how she managed to prepare so much. He happily digs in, while Xiao Yun watches in silence, still studying his mood. The evening news begins covering the university's graduation combat assessment as they eat. The report states that Vice Chairman Carl Cavendish attended in person and met with the students, while Xiao Yun's brother keeps eating with suspicious ease. Xiao Yun assumes he is pretending to be unaffected, thinking the failed assessment must have hurt him deeply even if he refuses to show it. The broadcast emphasizes the rare dual champion result, with 2 team leaders achieving perfect scores. It adds that Carl publicly singled out one of those leaders for special praise. When the name Sichin is spoken, Xiao Yun's attention snaps toward the television. She turns sharply, suddenly sensing something impossible in what she just heard. The realization hits her that the praised student with the perfect score shares her brother's exact name. A memory surfaces of a blood-stained stage and a coiled whip, as if the truth has been buried behind violence. In that memory, a stern man reveals he arranged the stage and even the audience for someone's performance. He condemns the result as a failure, making clear the event was a test of control as much as strength. Facing an injured young man, he coldly says this was not a narrow defeat, but a humiliating loss to an unknown nobody. He strips the young man of autonomy, declaring that from now on he will make no decisions for himself, and that a rematch has already been arranged. The wounded youth lowers his head as the older man promises to settle the matter personally. The man's obsession becomes explicit when he insists that first place must belong to the Gong family, no matter what it takes. Back in the present, the news repeats that the assessment produced 2 perfect score champions. It again notes that Vice Chairman Carl publicly praised one standout team leader. Hearing Si Chen's name a second time leaves Xiaoyun unable to dismiss it as coincidence. She jerks around from the table, now fully shaken by what the report implies. The impossible conclusion forms in her mind. The perfect score prodigy on television may actually be her brother. The report goes further, saying Carl was deeply impressed by Si Chen's performance and hopes the university will produce more talents like him. Unable to hold it in, Xiaoyun turns to her brother and asks outright whether the Si Chen on the news is him. He answers casually while eating, confirming it without any sense of drama. The shock is so overwhelming that something slips from Xiaoyun's foot and clatters to the floor. The moment lands with the force of a lightning strike, as if her whole understanding of him has split open. She stares at him in disbelief, trying to reconcile this calm young man with the brother she thought had failed the graduation assessment. Her thoughts race through the contradiction. He did lead a team to a perfect score, and he was personally praised by the vice chairman. A heavy silence settles between them as she struggles to process how completely she misunderstood him. Then her confusion gives way to tender certainty as she sees him not as a failure, but as her foolishly secretive brother. Tears well up while pride breaks through, and she realizes he truly reached the top. Her brother can only stare back, caught by the sincerity of her reaction. The story shifts back to the night of the graduation combat assessment, where a private dinner hints at the forces moving behind the scenes. A red-haired man leisurely enjoys premium beef, carrying himself with the confidence of someone used to power and privilege. With a knowing smile, he asks for an update, signaling that the real game around the assessment is still unfolding. A blonde subordinate begins her report with formal restraint. Over dinner, she hands her superior the compiled intelligence gathered so far. The file concerns the Devourer, a target that has left no trace for the past year. Even so, she warns that their side may already have been noticed. Her superior accepts the report calmly, praises her work, and tells her to eat before continuing. She stops him, making clear that the most important point is still to come. She reveals she has identified another suspicious figure, one who recently made contact with him personally. What alarms her most is how quickly that person's power has grown. To her, that rate of increase is so unnatural that it points to something dangerous. Elsewhere, inside the Devil Tower, Si Chen has spent over half a month clearing nearly every monster on his floor. Now level 17, he has fully adapted to the tower's crushing tenfold gravity. His constant use of Lightning Assassin has raised that class's proficiency and earned it a star. Reviewing his classes, he realizes none of his 4 options has reached its limit yet. He invests the new star into the class's most critical trait, speed. That pushes his speed to a level he believes should rival an A-rank assassin. But despite that growth, one obstacle on this floor still remains beyond him. A pack of lionesses closes in while their true leader watches from afar. The floor's lord is a lion king, and Si Chen still cannot land a hit on it. When the lionesses rush him, the pressure of their coordinated assault begins immediately. Si Chen answers with divine flash, relying on explosive speed to break through. He tears across the battlefield in lightning-fast bursts, trying to force an opening. Yet he has already learned the Lion King's ability behaves in a deeply abnormal way. Whenever he closes in to strike the Lord, it disappears before the blow can land. It instantly reappears beside the lioness positioned farthest from him. As the fight continues, he recognizes a fixed pattern behind their movements. 2 lionesses always engage him up close while the Lion King keeps its distance. The Lord never risks itself directly and lets the others do the fighting. Si Chen starts questioning what kind of class could give the Lion King such control over the battle. Before he can solve it, another lioness launches straight at him. He meets the charge with lightning gathered into a counterattack. For a moment it seems he has caught one cleanly, but the same displacement trick interrupts the kill again. Every time he tries to finish a lioness, that target vanishes as well. It reappears beside the Lion King, preserving the formation. And the instant Si Chen hesitates, another lioness lunges in to keep him occupied. He doubles down, flooding his body with lightning to maintain the exchange. He attacks in sweeping arcs, trying to outpace the teleporting rhythm. But the enemies simply repeat the same cycle without breaking. They keep pressing him, vanishing the moment a fatal strike is about to connect. Then they shift positions and resume the assault from a new angle. The Lion King remains safely behind the line while its lionesses rotate around him. Each new opening he creates is immediately replaced by another attack. Forced into constant motion, Si Chen can do little more than evade and counter. The battle turns into an endless loop designed to wear him down. Breathing hard, he realizes he is being dragged into the enemy's pace. The truth hits him. The Lion King is not struggling at all. It is merely playing with him. That realization sparks a new line of thought. He understands his mistake has been trying to beat them at their own speed game. So in mid-battle he initiates a class switch, abandoning the current approach. If the enemy refuses a direct clash, he decides he has no reason to keep fighting on its terms. Facing the beasts without relying on a mage class, the white-haired fighter calmly decides to overwhelm them with a higher-tier ice specialty instead. He completes a class switch into Cloud Mage at the 17th sky level, surrounding himself with frost and preparing a battlefield-wide spell. He unleashes Frost Spike, turning the sky itself into a source of descending ice lances. The frozen barrage slams across the ground and forces the lion-like monsters to scatter under heavy pressure. As the spikes keep raining down, the beasts retreat and try to break out of the impact zone. He makes clear that glass mages are weak up close but dominate at range, so he intends to win by controlling the entire field. The storm of ice bends and tracks toward the fleeing lion, denying it a safe path. One of the beasts tries to resist with its own power, but the falling frost still crashes down around it. A dark portal opens beside the pack, hinting that their side has a mobility trick ready. The monsters realize too late that the ice has already enclosed them, leaving them trapped inside his prepared kill zone. Confident in the trap, he moves to finish them the moment they are fully boxed in. The lead lion finally understands the danger and panics as the net closes. He follows with Frost Blast Bomb, condensing a massive sphere of freezing power directly above the trapped beasts. He notes that there is no corner left to hide in, making the attack unavoidable. The lion roars in desperation, but fear has replaced its earlier aggression. The bomb detonates in a pillar of blue force and engulfs the entire area. When the blast clears, the beasts are sealed inside jagged ice, apparently neutralized. At that instant, the black-haired protagonist re-enters the fight through a class switch, arriving in a surge of violet power. He declares that the battle on the first floor of the Dreadspire is finished and moves in to end it himself. With full confidence, he commits to the final strike. Using Stellar Warrior Triple Cataclysm in crushing mode, he drives a devastating blow into the frozen battlefield. The impact shatters the ice and smashes the remaining beasts across the ground, breaking their formation completely. One of the fallen creatures begins to dissolve into dark energy instead of simply dying, revealing that something about it was unnatural. That fading accelerates until the body is stripped away entirely. The battlefield falls quiet, leaving the black-haired fighter standing over what should be the last of them. He levels up to the 24th Ash stage and receives rewards from the victory. A system notice reveals the truth about the lion. It can be devoured, meaning it is tied to a special power rather than being an ordinary beast. He raises a glowing hand over the corpse, choosing to extract more information before acting. Pressing the issue, he demands to know what kind of class this enemy actually had. The remains respond as energy rises from the body, beginning to reveal the answer. He draws that power into his hand and forces the hidden class information to manifest. The extracted energy condenses into a readable form under his control. The revealed class is Lion Mane Phantom Mane, a stellar tamer class built around beast contracts and summoning. He immediately recognizes the significance. This is a tamer class unlike any he has seen before. That explains the enemy's behavior, because the lion itself was too weak to face him directly and had been relying on contracted beasts the entire time. The earlier portal movement now makes sense as part of the tamer's beast-linked mobility. He studies the class details further and learns of Stellar Warp, a teleportation skill tied to contracted beasts. He admits the teleportation ability is genuinely useful, even while evaluating it coldly. He concludes that forced contracting depends on intimidation, so obtaining strong beasts with this class would be difficult despite its potential. While he is still assessing the card, he senses the surroundings shift unexpectedly. The icy battlefield gives way to its true form, revealing that the first floor of the Dreadspire is actually a desert wasteland. Seeing only dunes and old bones, he wonders what catastrophe reduced the place to this barren state. Before he can investigate further, a sharp sound in the distance signals that something new has activated. A fiery spire rises from the sand, and he realizes the route to the second floor has finally opened. At the same time, a low growl from the darkness warns that one threat still remains nearby. He turns at once toward the sound, alert to the unfinished danger. The growl leads him to a ribcage half buried in the sand, where a pair of glowing eyes is still watching him. A small lion cub crawls out from the bones, clearly the last surviving beast connected to the fight. He realizes one little lion is still alive and identifies it as the final survivor. Lightning gathers around his fist as he prepares to deal with the cub and close out the floor for good. The narrator reveals that although the Lion King is dead, one of his contracted beasts remained behind, buried in the desert ruins. The young man realizes the cub-like beast has been bound in place by stellar chains, likely imprisoned here by the Phantom Mane Lion King. Seeing its condition, he immediately decides to act. The trapped beast is startled by the sudden surge of power aimed at its prison. He shatters the restraints in a single violent strike, tearing apart the chains and the surrounding rock. Freed at last, the small lion collapses onto the sand in shock. He tells the beast he is returning the freedom that was taken from it. As the cub regains itself, he recognizes this desert as the home it lost. He speaks from experience, acknowledging the pain of watching everything familiar be destroyed. The lion listens as he admits that kind of loss leaves a wound unlike any other. Even so, he urges it to survive and keep moving, because he is about to descend to the next floor. Before he can leave, a system alert interrupts him. The message announces that the beast itself has initiated a contract request, offering him a guaranteed recruitment and new passive abilities if he accepts. Caught off guard, he turns back to confirm what he is seeing. The system identifies the cub as Lion King Leo and asks whether he will accept the contract. He asks the little lion directly if it truly wants to follow him. Leo answers with an eager cry, making its choice clear. He warns Leo that from now on they will challenge each floor together, and every floor only grows more dangerous. He makes sure Leo understands that staying with him could mean injury or death. Leo responds even more firmly, refusing to back down. Accepting that resolve, he agrees. He formally gives his consent and signs the contract. The bond is established, linking him and Lion King Leo as Master and Beast. The system confirms his new Star Beast Master abilities, including shared growth, summoning, stat enhancement, and danger-linked vision. With the pact complete, he welcomes Leo as his companion and sets off with him. Together they approach the portal to the next floor, and he reminds Leo to protect itself in battle. He steps through the gate first and enters the new level. On the other side, he braces himself for whatever awaits. The second floor turns out to be a vast volcanic realm filled with lava and crushing heat. The temperature is so extreme that he feels as if his body might melt just from standing there. Leo peers over the edge and takes in the sea of lava below. As he wonders what kind of enemy lives on this floor, Leo suddenly panics and leaps back. A blinding attack erupts without warning. He barely registers the threat before it reaches him. The strike punches straight through his chest in an instant. He realizes too late that he has been killed before even seeing the monster clearly. He jolts awake in bed, gasping, as if torn out of a nightmare. Shaken and sweating, he understands that in that vision he died instantly without even glimpsing the creature responsible. The experience leaves him fixated on one question: what kind of monster waits on the second floor? His thoughts are interrupted when his sister calls him out for breakfast. He finds that she has prepared an unusually lavish meal. Surprised by the spread, he blurts out that breakfast feels more like a feast while she gets ready to leave. She casually reminds him to wash the dishes and move the laundry after eating. When he asks why she is rushing off during summer break, she reveals she is heading to a summer job. He is confused, since he thought he was supposed to handle the family's financial burdens. His sister insists she cannot lag behind now that her brother is improving, and says staying home all summer would be dull anyway. She heads out, leaving him with a final list of chores before she goes. After breakfast, he quietly starts by washing the dishes. He then hangs up the laundry, taking care of the house in her absence. The narration reflects that Xiaoyun has always been this kind of person, quietly dependable and determined to carry her share. A young man reflects that the girl in the photo has always faced life with stubborn resilience, yet to him she still feels like someone innocent he needs to protect. As he studies her picture, he admits that being near her makes him feel like the one being cared for instead. He reminds himself that once school matters are settled, he must confront the Demon King Wrath, and cannot remain at Xiaoyun's side much longer. That thought sharpens into a painful truth. She is the only person he genuinely worries about leaving behind. Just as he resolves to let go, a sudden idea stops him. He concentrates, and decides he may have found a way to protect her after all. Using his power, he opens a portal and summons a tiny lion-like beast from the Dreamscape Devil Tower. Even he is startled that the attempt actually works. He realizes he has successfully called a contracted beast into the real world. The little creatures immediately prove how unruly they are by tearing through his room. He chooses a beast called the Phantom Spirit Lion King, deciding it can sense danger and rush to Xiaoyun's side for him. Remembering how much Xiaoyun has loved cats and dogs since childhood, he becomes confident she will accept a small lion too. A crash from another room interrupts his planning. He heads over and finds the destruction still continuing. Even faced with the mess, he reassures himself that Xiaoyun will probably still take the beast in. As evening falls outside, the story shifts elsewhere. A damaged surveillance camera crackles with unnatural energy, hinting that something violent has already happened nearby. A bloodied man crouches in pain and fear, barely able to warn whatever approaches to stay away. A monstrous black-red force closes in on him, overwhelming the alley with predatory intent. The creature strikes before he can escape, ripping into him. As he dies, the man can only stare in terror at what is killing him. His final thought is that the attacker is some kind of monster. The creature begins devouring the body, as if feeding or processing it for some darker purpose. Meanwhile, Xiaoyun walks home after school, tired from a long day. Carrying groceries, she thinks about finally being off work and looking forward to bringing food home to her brother. Passing the alley, she wonders whether he will like the flavor she picked, unaware of the danger above and around her. She continues into the quieter side street on her usual route. A sudden presence makes her slow and sense that someone is there. When she turns, she is met by an unwelcome voice announcing that he has been waiting for her. The encounter takes on a forced romantic tone before the speaker even shows himself. Jin Duixing, a wealthy student from Qinghui Middle School, appears with roses and smugly reveals he has been waiting a long time for Xiaoyun. He complains that she left school too quickly to hear his invitation, then boasts that he has booked the top floor of Zifeng Tower for a date that night. Xiaoyun ignores the gesture and instead demands to know how he even found where she lives. He proudly explains that his father runs the top hospital in the city, so using family influence to track her down was easy for him. Xiaoyun rejects him outright, tells him they live in different worlds, and warns him never to come looking for her again. When she tries to leave, he grabs her arm to stop her. He insists she should feel honored by his attention and claims no one would dare refuse an invitation to Zifeng Tower's top floor. Instead of being intimidated, Xiaoyun coldly tells him she does not care about his status and calls his behavior creepy. Her contempt shatters his polished tact, and his wounded pride turns openly ugly. Consumed by rage, he starts to threaten her. Xiaoyun answers his outburst with a brutal headbutt that drops him on the spot. Standing over him, she tells him to get his head checked at his father's hospital. She storms off after warning him never to bother her again, furious that he ruined her day. By the time she reaches home, the confrontation is behind her. Inside, the young man presents the tiny white lion to her. Xiaoyun instantly falls in love with the adorable beast. She happily scoops it up and showers it with affection. He tells her the little lion is named Leo and says it will be hers to care for from now on. As she cuddles the purring creature, she innocently wonders why such a tiny lion already has a mane. Watching her accept Leo so easily, he quietly feels relieved that his plan to protect her has worked. Sichin realizes Xiaoyun's feelings for Leo are genuine, which removes one uncertainty from his plans. A message arrives just as he is settling on his next move. He checks the notification immediately, expecting something important. His confidence returns the moment he sees what it is. The guild has approved his application, clearing the last obstacle and letting his larger plan proceed. With that secured, he turns his attention to the tiebreaker scheduled 6 days later. 6 days pass, and the long-awaited tiebreaker exam finally begins. That afternoon, everyone gathers at Green Light Forest on the city outskirts for the decisive test. An official calls both examinees to attention and begins explaining the rules. After review, the school has chosen a wild lair hidden inside the forest, and scans confirm it is only D rank. As previously agreed, Si-chan and Gong Ting will enter that same lair together. The organizers warn that the lair's interior is unknown and more dangerous than the school's usual exam sites, so Eastern Nation has sent 3 senior guild members to supervise. Those 3 will accompany the examinees inside, protect them if necessary, and judge their performance live, starting with Ivan of the Imperial Guild. The second judge is Kai Yu of the Divine Eye Guild. The third is Sato Yuta of the Silver Wind Guild. Elsewhere, powerful observers watch the judges' feed and note that the final scores will depend entirely on those evaluations. One of them quietly stresses that the judges must perform well and that everything must be handled without leaving evidence behind. Another man questions why the vice chairman is still an Eastern nation after his official business should have ended. The vice chairman stays because he finds the coming contest too entertaining to miss. At the lair entrance, Si-chan and Gong Ting stand side by side, both fully focused on the match ahead. The vice chairman watches with delight, convinced he is about to witness a rare clash between true prodigies. Back at the site, the examiner formally moves to open the combat exam. He announces the National Awakened University Class of 2157 graduation combat exam. Then he names the tiebreaker matchup at its center, Si-chan vs Gong Ting. With that declaration, the exam officially begins and both candidates head into the lair. Si-chan enters in silence, already reading the place for danger. The 2 competitors pass through the glowing opening and into a dark, twisted interior. Inside, Si-chan surveys the terrain while Gong Ting advances with his sword ready. The supervisors identify the dead trees as signs of a flora-type lair, though they remain casual despite the risk. Si-chan's demon core suddenly reacts and overlays a red warning across his vision. The alert identifies a high-danger creature nearby, something far beyond what should be expected here. The warning is so abnormal that even Si-chan notes he has never seen his demon core issue one before. He immediately understands that something inside this supposedly D-rank lair is seriously wrong. Just as abruptly, the alert vanishes, leaving him with only suspicion and no clear target. As they continue deeper, Si-chan questions how monsters of such level could exist in a D-rank lair at all. The deeper passages offer no answer, only a growing sense of concealment. Gong Ting takes the lead while Si-chan follows, and the judges keep watch from behind. The thickening fog worries the supervisors, who remind each other not to lose sight of either examinee. Before they can settle, the ground ruptures beneath the slope. A toxin cage ant bursts out, revealing itself as a D-rank flora archer that attacks from ambush. Gong Ting reacts instantly, drawing his sword without hesitation. He launches forward in a single explosive charge to kill the monster before it can control the fight. The judges are impressed by his speed, though they warn that wild lair monsters are far more vicious than the school's usual targets. The ant fires corrosive poison shots, trying to overwhelm him at range. Gong Ting cuts through the incoming poison with precise, blazing sword arcs and keeps advancing. His assault tears the ant apart before it can recover. The creature crashes down in pieces, already finished. Gong Ting follows through with another burning strike, refusing to leave any chance of survival. That final slash drives into a larger hidden monster emerging behind the first, exposing a far more dangerous threat in the lair. He answers the new danger with blazing blade penetration, crashing down in a full-power attack as the real battle begins. As the test begins, one examinee cuts down a venomous monster the instant it appears, ending the threat before it can act. The proctors immediately reward his reflexes, judging his response to the ambush as flawless. They add more points for recognizing and destroying the creature's ranged venom organ first, stripping away its advantage. His clean finishing blow earns further praise, confirming that he fought with precision and no hesitation. Watching the replay, the evaluators conclude that his positioning, control, and execution are exceptional for a student facing even a weakened D-rank monster. Attention shifts to the other examinee, Si-chan, who has done nothing aggressive and is simply wandering through the lair. From the evaluator's perspective, Si-chan's lack of reaction to the monster's appearance makes his performance look like a complete failure. One observer stays silent, sensing there may be more to Si-chan's behavior than simple incompetence. Si-chan continues studying the terrain instead of the monsters, as if he is searching for something hidden in the lair itself. A younger spectator asks Yuanlong what Si-chan could possibly be looking for. Yuanlong guesses that Sichin is not avoiding the test at all, but hunting for a way to earn a decisive score in a single move. That suspicion points toward a hidden weak point buried in the lair's twisted structure. Standing over the root-like center of the ground, Sichin identifies the exact spot that could change the entire battle at once. He channels lightning into his hand and confirms that he has found what he was looking for. His strike drives straight into the lair's core, rupturing the structure from within. The impact triggers a chain reaction that tears through the nest beneath his feet. The entire brood erupts upward at once, exposing the monsters and their vulnerable venom sacs in a single mass. The proctors panic as they realize Sichin is charging directly at the nest of a D-rank monster, a move that looks suicidal and dangerous to everyone nearby. Another observer suddenly understands that Sichin intends something far bigger than a normal fight. Sichin plants his foot and commits fully to the attack. He unleashes Volt Assassin, turning himself into a lightning-fast killing stroke. His electric charge slices through the exposed monsters and their venom organs before they can recover. He keeps threading through the swarm, cutting down multiple targets in one continuous burst. What should have been a deadly nest becomes a one-sided massacre, as his speed and aim overwhelm every creature around him. By the end of the rush, the entire cluster has been annihilated in a single overwhelming sequence. The remains rain down around Sichin, leaving him standing alone at the center of the destroyed lair. The evaluators are left stunned, unable to understand how he erased the threat so completely. They admit that someone listed as only E-rank should not be able to kill a D-rank monster this decisively, much less one above his supposed level. Unable to justify a low score, they start grasping for excuses like recklessness or repetitive technique, even though none of it fits what they just witnessed. The silent observer focuses on Sichin with growing seriousness, recognizing that he may be far more dangerous than his file suggests. Meanwhile, others enjoy the upset, pleased that the old predictions about Sichin were correct and that the exam has become a true contest. They note that the test has barely begun, yet Sichin has already forced an unexpected head-to-head, and now attention turns to how Gong Ting will answer him. That shift in momentum tightens the atmosphere among the watchers. Before the situation can settle, the live feed from the lair begins to distort. The transmission abruptly fails altogether, leaving the observers staring at a complete signal loss. Confusion spreads as they realize this is not a normal technical interruption. Outside the lair, the monitoring team is hit by urgent alarms from the dungeon's systems. Their instruments report a signal anomaly and a dangerous change in the lair's status. The readings worsen to total communication failure, while the system can no longer properly identify the risk inside. The technician checks the device in alarm, realizing the problem is coming from the lair itself, not the equipment. The staff begin to fear that something inside the dungeon has fundamentally changed. At the entrance, the green portal starts collapsing and twisting out of its normal form. Then the entrance vanishes completely, sealing the dungeon and trapping those inside. Inside, Sichin senses a sinister presence spreading through the air, accompanied by an unnatural, oppressive resonance. He immediately recognizes that this is not the ordinary behavior of a monster lair. What has awakened is identified as the wrathful voice of a demon king, a far more terrifying force than the exam was meant to contain. Outside, the staff confirm that the entrance has disappeared and admit they have no idea why the dungeon suddenly transformed. Panic takes over as they call for immediate backup, fearing that something has gone terribly wrong inside the demon's lair. Back within the sealed dungeon, the ominous energy coils overhead while Sichin and the others realize they are now facing a new threat far beyond the exam. Even the composed observer is caught off guard, turning toward the disturbance as the true crisis begins. As the group advances through the dungeon, they sense an unnatural disturbance and realize something strange is approaching. Sichin suddenly recognizes the presence pressing into his mind as the voice of the demon king Wrath. The implication shocks him, because Wrath should not be appearing in this dungeon for years. At the same time, Sichin's magical core floods him with repeated high-risk warnings. He understands the danger is immediate and turns his attention to whatever is behind them. The party follows the ominous energy deeper into a fog-choked passage where the atmosphere itself feels wrong. From within the mist, a sinister presence answers with mocking laughter as something closes in. The others also notice an unknown shape ahead and the unnatural thickness of the fog. A pair of glowing eyes emerges first, confirming that something is stalking toward them through the haze. The creature finally reveals itself, stepping out as an insect-like demon wrapped in violent energy. It greets the humans with contempt and makes clear that they have walked into a trap it prepared. Gong Ting is rattled by the fact that the monster can speak the human tongue. They quickly conclude that any monster capable of that must be at least a high C rank, far beyond what should exist in a low-level demon lair. Realizing the candidates cannot survive this, Gong Ting moves to intercept and orders the others to stay back. He commits himself to the front line, trying to shield the younger fighters from the threat. Before he can fully seize control of the fight, the demon's attack catches him and draws blood. The ambush lands cleanly, showing that even Gong Ting is already being overwhelmed. The others are stunned as the battle turns lethal almost instantly. The demon presses forward with killing intent, sweeping past the defense and targeting the group as a whole. Its strike tears into the blonde swordsman's throat before he can avoid it. At close range, the demon coldly declares that all of them should die here. Even while choking on the wound, the swordsman refuses to collapse. He counters in the same breath, slashing upward and burning through the demon with a desperate flaming strike. The blow catches the creature off guard, forcing it to realize its prey can still fight back. The swordsman follows with a kick that drives the demon away and creates space. The demon is thrown back down the slope, breaking its momentum. Sichin calls out, but the wounded swordsman insists this is his fight because the lord attacked him first. He invokes the priority rule of the trial and claims sole right to kill the demon lord, forbidding interference. Sichin falls silent, recognizing both the rule and the man's determination. Instead of arguing, Sichin sharpens his focus and begins assessing the enemy with his own power. His evaluation identifies the wounded fighter as only C-rank mid-tier. The demon, however, registers as C-rank high-tier, confirming the duel is badly uneven. The others beg Gong Ting to withdraw, suspend the exam, and seek treatment because the demon lord is too dangerous even for him. Gong Ting rejects retreat and starts burning his own wound shut with intense flame. He forces his damaged body back into fighting condition through sheer will and fire. Sichin understands that Gong Ting is using high-temperature flames to stop the bleeding. Gong Ting openly refuses every suggestion to stand down and reignites his weapon. He declares that the duel will continue no matter the cost. The demon braces as it realizes its opponent is still coming. Gong Ting launches another flaming assault, driving the battle forward despite his injuries. Elsewhere, officials study the sealed entrance to the demon lair and note that such lairs can deliberately open and close to trap humans. Imperial Guild leader Lin Wuck explains that the dungeon itself is acting with intelligence. When asked how to reopen the entrance while Gong Ting remains inside, Lin Wuck gives a grim answer. He says there is only one method to force the lair open again. The demon lord inside must be killed. At first, one official assumes that should be manageable because a D-tier lair ought to house only a weak 1-tier lord with average C-tier strength. Lin Wuck immediately corrects him, warning that the D-tier label is a disguise created by the lord itself. From his observations, he concludes this lair is likely connected to the recent disappearances of awakened people. That realization makes the situation far more dangerous than anyone expected. Lin Wuck finally reveals the truth. This is not a D-tier dungeon at all, but a B-tier dungeon. A mantis-like monster lunges through the cave with blinding speed, its glowing eyes fixed on its target. It drives a barrage of green slashes at Gong Ting, trying to overwhelm him before he can recover. Gong Ting steadies himself and bursts forward with his glowing blade, refusing to give the creature momentum. The monster swings again, exposing itself in its aggression. Gong Ting vaults above the attack, reading the opening as the creature commits. Its strike crashes into the ground instead, leaving it vulnerable for an instant. He seizes that instant and brings his weapon down, recognizing that the monster has finally shown the weakness he needed. His counterattack cleanly severs the creature, ending the fight in a single decisive blow. The monster's remains tumble away across the cave floor. As the body falls still, the others watch from deeper in the lair, stunned by how quickly Gong Ting finished what they thought was the lord. They realize he defeated the supposed lord alone, far exceeding what they expected. Even from a distance, they admit young Master Gong's strength is not something they can casually measure. While one ally finishes healing the injured man, the group starts checking whether they can move and regroup. The recovering man notices his wrist device behaving strangely. Its display shows that communication with the outside has been cut off. The others confirm the same problem, and even their compass system has failed. They discover their camera drone is down as well, meaning every link outward has been severed. Gong Ting senses the shift in the room and turns, puzzled by the sudden concern. Behind him, the monster's corpse begins moving again under a sinister purple aura. The dead body rises and attacks despite having already been killed, proving something unnatural is controlling it. Gong Ting instantly cuts it apart again with a burst of golden strikes. The reanimated shell is shredded, and the system rewards the kill, but the result only deepens the mystery. Gong Ting is shaken that a creature he beheaded can still move at all. The black-haired young man explains that the thing Gong Ting killed was never the true lord, only a hypnotized puppet that could keep acting after death. He warns everyone to leave the lair immediately, because the next minds taken over could be theirs. Gong Ting demands to know how he could possibly know something so specific. One of the others rejects the claim outright, insisting a lair can only have one rank C lord and that monster had to be it. He argues that a creature of that level could not have been anything but the real ruler of the lair. Before the debate can continue, the black-haired man receives a system warning that multiple high-rank monsters are present. At the same time, a purple sound wave spreads through the cave like an invisible trap activating. The masked woman is struck first, her eyes turning purple as the hypnosis takes hold. The healer and the injured man are taken over as well, their wills overridden in moments. The black-haired man stays calm because he recognizes the attack too late but understands exactly what it is. He identifies the wave as the same kind of hypnotic sound assault used by Wrath. That realization brings back his memory of a previous life, when Wrath used this method to control victims on a massive scale. He remembers the personal cost of that power, tied to a rain-soaked tragedy he could not forget. He recalls that the technique was used to hypnotize and slaughter countless ordinary people across the world. Returning to the present, he watches the others with grim certainty as the pattern repeats. Now fully enthralled, his companions begin walking deeper into the lair under the sound wave's command. He concludes that the lord of this lair is definitely connected to Wrath. Following the hypnotized group inward, he realizes he has finally reached the enemy he has been seeking. The party advances in silence, reduced to obedient silhouettes moving toward the source. He keeps pace behind them, alert and measuring whatever waits ahead. The cave opens into a grotesque nest filled with eggs and a veiled central figure surrounded by serpentine forms and lingering purple energy. As they enter, the scale of the slaughter becomes clear from the bones, weapons, and remains scattered among the eggs. He reveals that he prepared anti-hypnosis audio in advance, using beta band sound to cancel the alpha band waves this creature relies on. Even protected himself. He knows the others have no such defense, so he resolves to kill the Lord before the enthralled team is sacrificed. The hidden Lord tastes the newcomers like prey, savoring the arrival of living flesh. Its hunger lingers over the group, judging them as fresh meat brought directly into its nest. The black-haired man meets that appetite with a cold stare, ready to answer the creature's hunger with violence. A battered child tightens his grip on a wooden stick, refusing to give in. Even after beating another boy bloody in the courtyard, he can barely remain standing himself. An adult acknowledges his victory and makes clear that he has won once again. The winner is identified as Gong Ting, only 8 years old, already hardened by this brutal contest. He is summoned up to eat at the table reserved for victors. The defeated child, Gong Ching, is ordered to kneel through the night as punishment for losing. Left humiliated and starving, Gong Ching swallows his fear and misery in silence. Before the punishment can fully settle in, food is quietly offered to him. Gong Ting secretly brings his brother bread, despite the risk of their father finding out. He cuts off any protest and insists Gong Ching eat quickly before they are caught. Their father discovers the kindness and answers it with immediate violence. Later, Gong Ting is left kneeling and injured indoors while the cane that beat him still hangs over him. Their father demands that he understand why the Gong family stands above others. He teaches that the family's position exists only because he has always been the winner, and that winners alone make the rules. From that, he declares that his son's place is only to obey the rules he sets. But Gong Ting, bruised and furious, pushes back with a dangerous question. If he defeats his father, would the right to make the rules become his? His father answers the challenge with contemptuous amusement. The response is not a fair duel but a shattered weapon and overwhelming force. Broken on the floor, Gong Ting protests that he issued a direct challenge, yet someone else was made to fight for his father. The father lets an imperial guard stand in for him and turns the lesson into another humiliation. He explains that true strength is not merely personal power but also the power one commands through others. He broadens the lesson into a worldview, telling the boy that human rules are more complicated than he thinks, except for one absolute. That absolute, he says, is winning. He drills the creed deeper. Methods do not matter, only results. And as his son Gong Ting must come first no matter what it costs. In his father's eyes, victory is the only thing that gives his son any worth at all. The child absorbs that cruelty until he can only conclude that winning is his sole value. In the present, that lesson hangs over a cavern where a monstrous lord looms above clusters of eggs and enthralled humans. Si-Chin realizes the creature's hypnosis works through alpha band sound waves, and that his prepared beta band audio is the reason he remains unaffected. Seeing that the others have no such protection and could die at any moment, he decides he must end the lord quickly. He gathers power to strike before the situation worsens. A blond man in a suit stops him by force before he can act. To prove his point without alerting the enemy, the man quietly drives his own hand into a wound in his chest and tells Si-Chin to wait. Bleeding heavily, he admits he does not know how Si-Chin is resisting the hypnosis. Blood drips to the ground as he steadies himself and commits to speaking through the pain. He reveals that he too has preserved his sanity, though by his own method. He warns that if Si-Chin exposes himself now, everyone present will be put in greater danger. Then he directs Si-Chin's attention to the eggs scattered throughout the cavern. He explains that if those eggs are harmed, countless C-rank monsters will hatch at once and everyone there will die. The Lord disguised this place as a low-rank lair to lure awakened people in and drain them dry, as shown by the bones left behind. Because of that setup, he believes the Lord should eventually come to them on its own. His proposal is to stay hidden and strike together only when the Lord approaches closely enough. Si-Chin acknowledges the thought behind the plan, but he immediately points out its fatal flaw. The Lord does not need to attack personally. With a mere thought, the creature can command all of its hypnotized victims to kill themselves. One enthralled man begins the order with a blissful, vacant smile. Another raises a gun to his own head as the command takes hold. A different victim starts strangling himself, showing the mass suicide has already begun. Before the deaths can spread, a lightning-wreathed fighter bursts in and knocks multiple victims unconscious. The Lord reacts in sudden alarm at this unexpected interruption. As the controlled people collapse instead of dying, the Lord realizes something in the food has interfered with its control and traces that sabotage back to them. A desperate command drives the insect monsters to kill for their master. One of the creatures surges forward, answering that order with immediate violence. A whole swarm gathers behind it, revealing that the group is being surrounded by blade-winged mantis-like enemies. From the monster's vantage point, the trapped hunters below are exposed and badly outnumbered. Seeing no clean way out, the blonde swordsman decides they have to abandon their original approach and use an emergency plan. He turns to Si-Chin and urgently asks him to do him one crucial favor. His plan is simple. Si-Chin must get the 3 incapacitated people out while he stays behind to hold the monsters back. Si-Chin pauses, taking in the weight of that request. The blonde man admits he probably cannot win, but he believes he can still buy enough time for the others to escape. Before the plan can unfold, another mantis dives in with a shriek. The blonde swordsman intercepts it in a burst of slashes, blaming himself for bringing everyone into this disaster. He throws himself fully into the clash, forcing the creature back even as the impact sends him skidding. His blade carves across the ground as he struggles to keep control of the exchange. He hardens his resolve, deciding that since this crisis began with him, he will be the one to end it. He drops into a braced stance, preparing to make his stand alone. Sichin interrupts that sacrifice, revealing he had been underestimated and that he had accepted this challenge for his own reasons too. Lightning erupts around him as he switches classes and becomes Volt Assassin, stepping forward beside the wounded swordsman. Crackling with power, Sichin faces the swarm and takes control of the battlefield. His attention shifts to the hidden overlord directing the monsters from above. He calmly claims that threat for himself. The blonde swordsman immediately objects, insisting this enemy is far beyond either of them. He explains that the overlord is at least B rank and likely already A rank, making it a completely different class of danger. From his perspective, the only rational move is to grab the others and run. Sichin agrees the situation is a nightmare, but reveals escape is impossible because the dungeon gates have already sealed shut. That revelation shocks the blonde man, who realizes they are trapped inside with the monsters. Sichin's focus sharpens as he reassesses the fight under those new conditions. He begins comparing the overlord's rank to a known benchmark, trying to measure exactly what they are facing. By that scale, the creature's combat power should rival the phantom main Lion King from the deepest floor of Dreadspire. Even as that realization lands, another mantis lunges into attack. Sichin meets it head-on with electrified force, stopping its charge in a single explosive clash. The creature tries to recover and strike again from above. The blonde swordsman warns him as the danger closes in. Sichin protects both of them at once, smashing one attacker back while the blonde man cuts down another. But the swarm keeps pressing, with more mantises flooding in from every side. The blonde swordsman realizes they are about to be overwhelmed simply by numbers. Sichin answers by gathering a concentrated mass of lightning into his hand. He unleashes Electric Blade, shaping that power into a lethal assassination technique. Both spear outward across the ground from his position, turning the battlefield into a kill zone. The lightning strikes the incoming mantises precisely through their weak points, dropping them instantly. Sichin follows with Flash God, accelerating into a blinding, lightning-wreathed rush. He tears through the swarm in rapid succession, cutting down multiple monsters before they can react. Watching this, the blonde swordsman is stunned by what should have been impossible. He realizes Sichin is fighting like a true assassin, exploiting every opening despite the monster's superior raw strength. What shocks him most is that every strike lands exactly where it will kill. Sichin keeps weaving through the pack, turning each pass into another clean execution. The blonde swordsman understands that Sichin is bridging the power gap through overwhelming speed and flawless technique. He can barely process how fast Sichin is moving now. At that pace, Sichin cuts through the swarm so efficiently that the blonde man starts to believe even an A-rank threat might be manageable. That possibility makes the blonde swordsman reconsider, and he snaps his sword back into readiness. With his blade humming to life, he decides they may actually be able to pull this off together. A dark force cuts off the chatter and begins an ultimate enhancement, flooding the battlefield with violent purple energy. The power-up intensifies as the source commits fully to the enhancement. The monster's physical abilities surge at once, with strength and stamina rapidly climbing under the boost. In response, multiple winged, stone-armored monsters materialize overhead and close in on their target. The empowered force gives a direct order to tear the intruder apart immediately. The young fighter answers by igniting himself with yellow lightning and bracing to meet the attack head-on. He launches upward in a burst of speed before the monsters can overwhelm him. His first strike crashes into one of the creatures, breaking the opening rush. While fighting, he urges Ash to hold on, making clear he is buying time for someone else. He stays focused despite the pressure, preparing to keep the swarm off him. The monsters surround him from every side, but he keeps moving through their formation instead of letting them pin him down. One creature nearly catches him from behind, showing how little room for error he has. He slips past its flank and lines up a cleaner hit on the armor. A flurry of electrified blows hammers into the monster, aimed at cracking its shell rather than merely pushing it back. The creature endures the punishment and remains dangerous, its enhancements still holding. He answers with a heavier impact, smashing into it with enough force to blast it away. The exchange sends explosive shockwaves across the battlefield, but the fight is still not settled. Breathing hard, he realizes the enhanced monsters are all hovering around B rank in every stat. He also figures out their iron-hard shells make direct kills inefficient, so he needs to break the armor before targeting their vitals. He thanks Ash, signaling that help from Ash has just created an opening. Using that support, he triggers a fresh surge in his own attributes, and declares that the extra time was exactly what he needed. Elsewhere at 17:30, Anna Zhu arrives late at a rental apartment carrying groceries and apologizing for the delay. Her friend reassures her and mentions her brother still has not come home, which catches Anna off guard. As they settle in, Anna learns the brother still does not know her friend passed the Academy of Arts exam, and they decide to eat first and tell him later. Their plans pause when they discover they have run out of garlic sauce. The friend heads back out with Leo to restock and grab snacks, leaving Anna behind to wait and celebrate properly later. At the store, the errand goes smoothly and payment is completed without incident. On the way back, she dotes on Leo and treats the outing like a small reward for him. Leo happily digs into the snacks from inside the bag, calm for the moment. She laughs and promises him more treats later, unaware they are being watched. As she walks away from the store, hidden observers keep her in sight. Two men confirm they have eyes on her, one of them checking her photo as they track the target. They verify her identity and prepare to move once they get the chance. Their handler orders patience, telling them to wait until she leaves camera range before acting. She continues down the street, still unaware but moving into a more vulnerable stretch. The pursuers quietly close the distance behind her. She finally notices the tail, and realizes the same men have been following her since she left the store. The stalkers step forward openly, no longer bothering to hide their intent. Leo senses the danger too and growls, confirming her suspicion that something is wrong. She immediately shields Leo inside the bag and orders him to stay hidden no matter what happens. Though tense, she steadies herself and accepts that the night has suddenly turned dangerous. Back in the battle, the fighter remains winded as he reassesses the enhanced monster's B-rank threat level. He sticks to the same conclusion. Their shells must be broken first if he wants any real chance of killing them. Again he acknowledges Ash, showing their coordination is central to his next move. With Ash's support, he unleashes another major stat boost and decides the borrowed time is enough to finish this. He pushes his power to strength max and announces that he is about to use his ultimate move. Refusing to care whether his enemies are B-rank or even A-rank overlords, he releases Nuclear Warrior, Extreme Blaze Rift. A massive wave of fire tears through the charging monsters and engulfs their armored bodies. The inferno expands until the creatures are almost completely swallowed by the blast. Even a larger, tentacle presence in the background is caught in the path of the attack as the blazing rift carves across the battlefield. A final attack descends with overwhelming force. The strike detonates across the battlefield in a massive explosion. Its wielder crashes down hard, barely able to stay upright after spending everything. He realizes the cost at once. His stamina, concentration, and elemental control are all exhausted. Even so, he clings to the hope that this was the finishing blow. As fire and smoke sweep over the ruined slope, he concludes the fight should be over. That hope is immediately challenged by a mocking voice asking if that was truly all he had. Both survivors turn toward the source, and the wounded fighter freezes in alarm. The enemy emerges intact inside a hardened green barrier, and coldly dismisses the attack as a human's pathetic effort. The swordsman is shaken, realizing he poured every last bit of himself into a blow that accomplished nothing. Faced with the untouched monster, he understands in despair that he did not even manage to scratch it. Cole stays silent, studying the situation instead of panicking. He deduces that just before impact, the creature drained the demon eggs dry and turned that stolen energy into a barrier strong enough to endure the blast. The exhausted fighter starts to accept that this may be how he dies. Cole interrupts that collapse and offers him a deal. He promises the other man can keep first place if Cole takes the million prize money, then begins switching classes in a surge of power. As the transformation completes, Cole adds a single condition. He reveals himself as Ash SI of the Infernal Rakshasa class and warns that what comes next must never be spoken of. The swordsman is stunned to discover Cole is a dual-class user. Magenta energy starts rising from the corpses scattered across the battlefield. That power continues to pour out of the dead and gather around Cole. His new class ability, Asura Collapse, drains stamina and strength from nearby corpses and converts them into his own. The stolen power erupts through him as his reserves rapidly refill and his physical might climbs. Watching the sudden reversal, the battered swordsman can only stare. The hooded enemy notices the change and focuses on Cole. Cole answers with a predatory confidence that he now has the excess power needed to finish this. With his stamina and strength pushed to their limits, he declares the overload is under control. The monster responds by invoking Requiem Enigma once more. A hypnotic field blooms around it, trying to seize their minds again. The swordsman recognizes the same hypnosis and struggles to resist as it starts affecting him. Cole remains calm and untouched by the mental assault. The enemy is visibly startled that its technique is failing on him. Cole advances through the distortion and reveals the reason. The hypnosis works only against the weak-minded, and he is not susceptible. Unable to control him, the creature escalates to an ultimate attack called Sonic Hell. Violent waves of destructive force explode outward from the barrier around the monster. The battlefield is shredded by the attack, forcing the wounded swordsman to hunker down while Cole charges straight through it. The swordsman is battered by the shockwaves and can do nothing but endure. Yet the enemy suddenly finds multiple strikes piercing its body despite its defenses. Cole bears down on it with feral intensity, fully committed to the kill. He plants his foot and launches into a decisive rush. From below the barrier, he closes the distance so fast that the monster can barely react. As more wounds open, the creature panics and realizes it may be completely incapable of harming him. Desperate, it orders its serpent-like appendages to tear him apart. Cole meets the counterattack head-on, weapon ready and movement unbroken. He slices through the first serpent in a single clean stroke. Its severed body crashes to the ground behind him, already irrelevant. The remaining serpents lunge together in a last attempt to stop his advance. Cole reads the attack instantly and commits to a finishing line through them. He carves upward through the converging heads, cutting them apart as he drives toward the core. Still wreathed in stolen power, he bursts past the shredded assault and continues his charge toward the trapped enemy inside the barrier. The Lord dismisses his opponent's defense as worthless and declares his own protection impossible to break. A new figure rises in a violent surge of power, drawing the Lord's attention at once. The newcomer reveals a Star Warrior technique that converts the target's own defensive force into his strength, pushing his power to its limit. With that amplified strike, he cleaves straight through the Lord's barrier and body in one overwhelming blow. As the barrier bursts apart, the Lord realizes too late that something beyond his understanding has struck him. The wounded observer is stunned that the supposedly unbreakable defense was destroyed in a single hit. The victor closes in and demands to know who the Lord really is, identifying him as Sichan. Before the enemy can recover, the victor unleashes another Star Warrior attack and drives him down with crushing force. The impact detonates into the ground like an execution. Dust and debris swallow the battlefield in the aftermath. When the smoke clears, the enemy is reduced to a blackened remnant at the bottom of a crater, barely able to process what happened. Standing over him, the victor coldly orders answers and asks what connection he has to Wrath. That question shocks the dying lord, who cannot understand how this human knows of the demon king Wrath. The victor presses harder, forcing him to speak. The lord tries to turn the interrogation back on him, arguing that anyone who knew Wrath's location should have helped break his seal. That remark makes the victor realize Wrath was not merely absent but sealed away by someone. Instead of answering directly, the lord breaks into manic laughter as his body starts to come apart. As he dissolves into dark energy, he leaves a final warning that Wrath will inevitably return. He adds that Wrath will once again lead the demon army and exterminate humanity to the last person. The threat ends with the lord collapsing into a floating core of energy before the victor. The victor immediately captures that remaining essence rather than letting it escape. He activates a devouring ability and absorbs the demon's power into himself. The process completes, identifying the consumed target as the Flora Mage Wrath's Autonist. The absorption triggers a level up for Sichan, confirming the kill has strengthened him further. Reviewing what he learned, Sichan concludes that Wrath had already entered the human world long ago, but was sealed for reasons still unknown. He is left wondering what hidden events took place beyond his knowledge. That thought is interrupted when he senses something familiar and turns sharply. The injured examiner drags himself up, coughing blood, and admits he never expected Sichan to be a dual-class awakener. He concedes defeat, acknowledges Sichan is stronger, and names him the winner of the assessment. He also promises to keep Sichan's secret, and says nothing about today will be exposed. But before the matter can settle, the examiner suddenly convulses and spits blood. He collapses against the crater wall, barely able to breathe. Even while failing, he explains that with the Lord dead, the exit to the demon lair should reopen soon and the guild raid team will arrive shortly. Sichan's eyes flare as a new presence intrudes on his awareness. His vision locks onto a supernatural signal, as if something is forcing a memory or connection open. He sees an older man standing within a sinister aura, clearly someone tied to the threat he has been tracing. Recognizing him, Sichan identifies the figure as Siyun. The vision sharpens into a monstrous image of the man, marked by inhuman eyes and corruption. Elsewhere, a young woman carrying a small creature is suddenly alarmed, as if the same danger has brushed against her. She realizes suspicious men are moving around her in the alley and closing the distance. Keeping calm, she notes they have been following her since she left the supermarket and tries to judge their intent. The men reveal themselves as hostile pursuers rather than passers-by. The creature in her arms senses the danger too, confirming her instincts. She tells it to stay hidden for now while she handles the situation. Though uneasy, she steels herself and accepts that another dangerous encounter is beginning. Remembering the rule for being tailed, she heads toward a crowded area instead of staying isolated. At dusk she reaches the busy shopping street, where the crowd gives her a chance to disappear. She blends into the pedestrians and uses the flow of people as cover. Her pursuers force their way after her, trying not to lose sight of their target. Using the crowd to mask her movement, she slips away before they can close in. A girl tries to slip away while her pursuers are distracted. The men quickly realize she has vanished and panic over losing her. She hides in a cramped back alley utility area, trying to stay out of sight. She realizes with alarm that whatever power she relied on has already been exhausted. Before she can recover, someone steps into her hiding place and cuts off her escape. A silver-haired man reveals he has been expecting to catch her here. Cornered at the stairs, she demands to know who these people are and how they found her home. The rest of the gang catches up, impressed and irritated by how hard she was to track down. As they close in from multiple sides, the leader watches with amused confidence while she backs away. In desperation, she unleashes a burst of ice to stop them. The attack fails to save her, and she crashes to the ground instead. One thug advances with his hands charged in blue energy, mocking her for already being spent. She braces herself, trying to hold on under the threat. The thug makes his intentions clear, treating her like prey and moving in to abuse her. Terrified, she recoils as he reaches for her. Before he can touch her, a violent purple strike smashes into his face. The thug is hurled away across the alley, leaving the leader momentarily surprised. The silver-haired man notices the sudden interference and reassesses the situation. A huge clawed paw slams down nearby in a surge of purple power. A massive white lion materializes between the girl and her attackers, shielding her. She recognizes the beast at once and calls it Leo. Leo answers with a fierce stare, fully awakened and ready to fight. The injured thug panics, unable to understand where such a beast came from. The gang realizes too late that the job they took involved far more than a helpless girl. Leo roars and forces the attackers back with raw presence alone. One hooded thug tries to answer with crackling power of his own, but Leo's summoned form suddenly shrinks into a tiny cub, leaving the girl exposed again. The cub collapses dizzily, clearly unable to sustain that larger form. She is stunned by Leo's sudden weakness. Gathering the cub into her arms, she anxiously checks what has happened to him. The leader dismisses Leo as a disappointment, deciding the beast is no real threat in this state. At his command, strange plant-like growths begin spreading through the alley. Vines erupt everywhere around him, revealing his own awakened power and tightening his control of the scene. The girl shields Leo as the vines whip toward them from all directions. She warns the leader not to come any closer. He ignores her defiance and presses forward through the writhing vines. Clutching Leo, she refuses to waste time pleading with him. The leader coldly threatens to take the beast from her by force if she will not surrender it. In that instant, she triggers Beastbind, Star Trail Shift, using spirit power to call her contracted beast to her side or warp to it. A dark-haired young man bursts into the alley in a flash of purple energy, arriving directly beside her and Leo. His sudden entrance tears through the thugs' formation and sends one of them flying. The impact continues through the alley, smashing apart the gang's position. The newcomer, Xiao Xian, apologizes for being late and immediately checks whether she and Leo are safe. The remaining thug is rattled by this new arrival and has no idea where he came from. The girl hurriedly explains that the enemy somehow found their hideout and that all of them are awakened fighters. Xiao Xian calmly reassures her that she no longer has to face them alone. The silver-haired leader slams a hand forward, launching another attack with his green power. Dark thorn vines surge out as he admits he underestimated them for a moment. Now fully enraged, he throws himself back into the fight with murderous intent. He vows to kill them both and profit from the job by charging his employer even more. The young man orders the frightened girl to stay behind him while he prepares to protect her. With cold confidence, he decides to end the situation quickly. Nearby, a group of thugs continues brutalizing him while the girl watches helplessly. Their orange-haired leader keeps demeaning the siblings and urges the abuse on. Pinned down and beaten from all sides, the brother endures the assault in silence. The girl finally intervenes, shouting for them to stop. Trembling but determined, she grabs a metal pipe and demands they release her brother. The leader mocks her courage and treats her defiance like entertainment. Seeing them turn toward her, the brother desperately warns them not to go near her. He reminds the leader that Si-yun was supposed to be left alone. The leader openly admits he no longer cares about that promise. He reveals Si-yun is his cousin and declares he will punish her for daring to resist him. One thug keeps the brother pinned while the others move to carry out the threat. The brother suddenly explodes into action and smashes the thug restraining him with a brick. The attackers are caught off guard as he throws off the man pinning him. Furious, he rises with the brick still in hand and turns on them. He charges the leader's side and disrupts the men closing in on Si-yun. His rage peaks as he condemns their attempt to break their word. The leader finally realizes the brother is no longer just taking the beating. Driven by fury, the brother hurls himself at the leader and attacks with the brick. The leader is slammed to the ground screaming. Bleeding and terrified, the leader calls him a complete madman. The brother immediately turns back to comfort Si-yun and tells her not to be afraid. He repeats that she must stay directly behind him. Then he faces the remaining enemies and promises to finish them fast. 3 awakened opponents rush him at once, each using a different power. Si-yun panics as she realizes every attacker there is awakened and utterly unhinged. She fears her brother cannot possibly defeat people like that. One lightning-charged thug lunges in, mocking him as a mere student. The brother answers with overwhelming force and kicks the attacker so hard he is blasted away in blood. Si-yun is stunned by the sudden reversal. Another enemy closes the distance instead of retreating. A second thug leaps down with an electrified blade, trying to finish him from above. The brother catches the weapon arm barehanded and stops the strike cold. He counters instantly with a savage kick to the attacker's face. That thug is hurled across the area and crashes into the far side in a spray of blood. The last awakened enemy unleashes thorned black vines infused with green energy. The brother reads the attack calmly as the vines whip toward him. The vines tear through the surroundings as they try to skewer him. Their white-haired controller sneers that a schoolboy should not be able to stand against him. He escalates by sending a storm of stabbing vines meant to pierce the boy full of holes. The brother's eyes sharpen as he prepares a different response. He moves through the encircling vines with unnatural speed and precision. His body slips between the attacks as if the trap cannot catch him. In a blink, he closes the gap and appears right in front of the vine user. The man is horrified, unable to understand that movement. Watching from behind, Si-yun suddenly remembers who her brother really is. She recalls that he once took first place. He was the champion of the Awakened University exam. In other words, he is an absurdly powerful awakened fighter. He drives the vine user into the ground with crushing force. The man lands mangled and broken while the brother stands over him. One of the defeated attackers lies motionless, his face ruined. Another thug is left slumped and barely alive. Once the immediate danger is over, the brother tells Si-yun to take Leo home first. He says he will hand these men over to security and then return. Still shaken, Si-yun agrees and clutches the pet tighter. Later, under the night sky, the scene shifts to the aftermath. The white-haired vine user lies unconscious and bloodied. He slowly stirs back to awareness. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself tied to a pillar with his surviving men beside him and the brother standing before them. The captives panic and demand to know where they are and why they were brought there. The brother, nursing a splitting headache, identifies them as Black Mountain Society mercenaries and notes they only act for money. He demands to know who paid them to target Si-yun. The thug refuses to betray his employer, claiming he cannot ruin Blackie's reputation on the street. As a system message announces a job class change, the brother coldly notes that they still refuse to speak. The transformation completes and grants him the class Re-Evolutionist with an ultimate evolution path. Its result manifests as the Nether Spirit Illusionist, a class built around domination, illusion, and spirit control. The captive's eye flares with unnatural pink light as the new power takes hold. Bound and helpless, he begins convulsing as the brother's spirit influence invades him. Dark thorn growths erupt from the ground under the force of the new ability. The other captives watch in terror as their boss starts changing into something monstrous. The brother begins the interrogation by taking the man's legs first. A black thorn lashes out and mutilates the captive's lower body. Without emotion, the brother moves on to the man's arms. Another strike tears through the captive's bound hands as he screams. The brother states that this suffering is the exact price for threatening Si-yun. Even hearing Si-yun's name in that context leaves the girl horrified by how far he is willing to go for her. One surviving thug breaks down and demands to know what was done to their boss. The brother turns to him and announces that it is now his turn. The next captive panics as the same dark power reaches for him. He immediately begs for mercy and promises to reveal everything. He names the mastermind as the son of the first hospital's director, Jean Duishin. The story cuts to Jean Duishin himself, lounging at a rooftop pool party in luxury while the time and place are established. His friends needle him about being rejected twice by the same girl. They laugh that the school idol could not even win over a younger student. Humiliated, Jean vows that Si-yun will pay for making him lose face twice. He storms off under the excuse of going to the bathroom and tells the others to leave him alone. Inside the restroom, he tries to cool off by himself. A flickering light adds to his irritation. He senses something is wrong and looks up. Already on edge, he curses even the light for seeming to mock him. Then the brother appears behind him without warning. The brother confirms the name and asks if he is Jean Duishin. Elsewhere, security staff discuss how the rich students have booked out the entire rooftop again. They note the cameras are all shut off and bitterly remark that the wealthy know how to hide their filth. One guard checks that no one is listening before speaking more openly. He leans in and reveals the rumor that many of the girls up there were tricked and effectively kidnapped. The other guard is shocked that it could be that serious. The first guard says a female student once killed herself there after they ruined her, and the families buried the case. He insists those rich boys have committed countless disgusting crimes behind their polished image. Back in the restroom, Jean is rattled by the stranger's presence and demands to know who he is. He tries to hide behind rules and threats, insisting the rooftop is private and saying he will call the police. The brother silently takes Jin's phone before he can use it. Jean freezes when he realizes the phone is no longer in his hand. The screen reveals an incoming call from Black Hide of the Black Mountain Gang. Holding that phone up, the brother makes it clear he knows Jean hired the thugs to target Si-yun. Jean panics and demands to know why Black Hide's phone is with him. The brother presses him for Black Hide's whereabouts and what exactly happened to him. Jean recoils in terror and asks what kind of monster is standing before him. The brother answers by smashing Jean through the glass and sending him out toward the pool area. Jean crashes hard amid shards and blood. He lands broken on the rooftop floor, screaming for help. Bleeding and sobbing, he begs anyone nearby to save him. Then he notices no one is responding the way he expected. The partygoers stare in confusion and fear as the scene turns violent. The brother emerges cloaked in dark power and closes in while Jean crawls away. Jean completely loses composure and can only curse in panic. He demands to know who this lunatic is and what grudge could justify such hatred. The brother ignores the question, warns him to stay quiet, and Jean falls back on his father's status as a shield. Jean screams that the director of the first hospital will kill anyone who touches him. The brother cuts through the threats with a command for him to shut up. Jin's eyes suddenly flare pink as the brother's illusion power seizes his mind. Under the spell, Jean goes slack and enters a nightmare state. The brother orders him to pick up a shard of broken glass. Compelled against his will, Jean reaches for the shard. As Jean obeys, the narration reflects that evil is not confined to demon realms. It thrives among humans too, especially those who use wealth to commit atrocities. Inside the illusion, Jean relives the aftermath of a girl's death while his men panic around him. The memory shows him drunk and frightened while others urge him not to panic. They calmly decide to fake the dead girl's fall and rely on his father to manipulate the autopsy. Another thug confirms Jean paid them heavily and ordered them to make Si-yun remember this day forever. The brother resolves to eliminate every threat around Si-yun, no matter how dark he must become. Under the illusion's pressure, Jean raises the shard over himself as if preparing his own execution. A ruthless inner voice urges the brother not to hesitate. The scene abruptly shifts back to the demon lair, where the brother waits with an injured ally and expects the exit and rescue team to arrive soon. The wounded Si-yun says that once they escape, he will tell everyone the brother was the one who solved everything. That praise triggers a sudden reaction in the brother's altered senses. He perceives a new figure appearing nearby. Realizing something is wrong, he immediately understands the danger. He concludes that Si-yun is in immediate peril and activates a beast-link teleportation skill to reach her. A burst of stellar light marks his instant departure. Si-yun is left stunned, realizing the brother may possess multiple classes at once. As the brother's powers overlap, another aspect of his strength surfaces. He calls out to Si-yun while his eyes shift again, suggesting yet another hidden layer. His focus narrows completely on the emergency. Si-yun can only wonder how many secrets the brother is still hiding. At that moment, rescuers finally locate the trapped group in the demon lair. A doctor urges the medics to hurry and save them at once. The rescue team rushes down into the crater toward the survivors. Rescue workers stabilize the wounded in the demon lair while a senior official arrives to assess the aftermath. He checks on Gong Ting and is told it is remarkable the survivors endured at all against the Lord-class monster. The proctor is confirmed safe, another victim is pulled out of a nightmare-ridden coma, and the immediate crisis appears contained. Attention turns to the missing student Sichin, and the search continues when no other casualties are found. The official loudly blames the inspection agency for failing to properly evaluate the lair, and for nearly getting the students killed. But the injured silver-haired student sees the disaster not as a failure, but as an opportunity. A composed man with glasses steps in and declares that the incident has made events unfold perfectly. He frames the monster attack during the assessment as the ideal setup, since even the proctors were overwhelmed. In his eyes, the hopeless situation created the perfect stage for Gong Lin's son to emerge as the one who saved everyone. The wounded student tries to point out that Sichin was actually responsible. Before he can finish, the man seizes his injury and silences him through pain. With a cold threat, he orders the student to accept the official version. He was the one who resolved the crisis. Nearby, the official lowers his head, already yielding to the narrative being imposed. Another witness calmly reinforces that everyone present saw the event and can be made to support that account. The enforcer tightens his grip, making clear that resistance will only bring more suffering. Under pressure, the injured student is forced to hear the lie repeated as fact. The man finally releases him and says the real performance will come at tomorrow's graduation ceremony. That night, at a rented apartment, the mood shifts as bottles are raised in celebration. Si-Yun's family and friends gather around a meal to congratulate her for being accepted into the International Central Art Academy. She is praised as someone whose artistic dream is finally within reach. Sichin stays quiet, drinking as he watches the family enjoy the moment. His sister notices his odd lack of surprise and jokingly suspects he somehow already knew the result. He covers himself with a smile, claiming he is simply happy because this acceptance mirrors what he once knew would happen. Another family member envies Si-Yun's chance to study in the Xinghe Nation, calling it a rare life-changing opportunity. Si-Yun's excitement is tempered by worry over the distance and the heavy cost of living so far from home. Sichin immediately tells her not to worry about either problem. He reveals that after graduating, he will also be working in the Xinghe Nation. The announcement shocks the others, who realize he has secured a position with the top-tier guild raid team there. Si-Yun bursts with joy at the thought that they will be able to stay together abroad instead of being separated by their dreams. Seeing her happiness, Sichin quietly resolves to change her fate this time. He vows that she will not be forced to abandon her ambitions again. Later, under the shower, he lets the day's tension wash off. He confirms to himself that the threats around Si-Yun have been removed and that the graduation assessment is now completely over. With first place in the assessment and a 1 million yuan prize secured, he can finally repay Qing Ji's loan as promised. But even while resting, his thoughts return to Wrath, whose descent into the human realm should have been impossible this early. He realizes that if Wrath truly appeared years ahead of schedule, the future has become far more dangerous, and he needs to accelerate his plans to track him down. Before taking that step, however, he decides he still needs one trustworthy teammate. He concludes that tomorrow's graduation ceremony will give him the perfect chance to find one. Elsewhere, a blonde investigator reports to a pink-haired man that the serial killer known as the Devourer has resurfaced in Sengcheng County. Intrigued, he asks her to explain in detail. She says she rushed to the scene as soon as the intelligence reached her. Her evidence shows the security cameras were destroyed beforehand. Only traces of combat and blood remained, and the method matches the Devourer's prior killings exactly. She explains that the Devourer specifically hunts powerful awakeners, and that the status of his victims keeps rising. To her, that pattern proves he is growing stronger at an alarming pace. She warns that once he starts moving, he kills repeatedly, so another spree is likely imminent. Rather than alarm, the man responds with interest at the timing of the Devourer's return. The investigator then adds an even more significant discovery, and places new materials before him. She identifies the Devourer's latest crime scene as an alley in the low-rent district. More importantly, that alley lies less than 100 meters from Sichen's apartment. Hearing Sichen's name tied to the case, the pink-haired man falls into a sharp, suspicious silence. With no direct proof about the Devourer, the discussion turns to the one solid clue they do have. Sichin has recently shown a sharp rise in both intelligence and combat ability, and both of them have seen it firsthand. From that, one possibility is raised that the Devourer has already fixed on Sichin as its next target. But the speaker pauses over a second theory, signaling that the situation may be far more dangerous than simple pursuit. He finally voices the darker conclusion: instead of hunting Sichin, the Devourer may already be Sichin himself.